Chapter 622. In the field of how to quickly approach the enemy, the Flying Thor and Flying Thor 2 Dan have already reached the extreme. If he wants to continue to improve the Flying Thor, then he must not develop it according to the existing ideas. So, Rog had a bold idea. Since the road of quickly approaching the enemy is coming to an end, then why not do the opposite and find a way to make the enemy quickly come to his side? In terms of effect, quickly approaching the enemy and the enemy quickly coming to his side are the same thing. As long as he has the initiative, then whether he is close to the enemy or the enemy is close to him, there is no difference. Then the problem is how to quickly make the enemy come to him through the Flying Thor. In theory, it is very simple, he just needs to reverse the operation of the Flying Thor. But it is very simple in theory, it does not mean that it will be easy to operate in reality. As everyone knows, the Flying Thor is a spacetime ninjutsu. It is a chakra ninjutsu that needs chakra to activate. In a way, ninjutsu is like advanced mathematics. If you don't know it, you don't know it. There is no such thing as suddenly being enlightened. Therefore, how to make the enemy who doesn't know ninjutsu quickly come to his side through the Flying Thor has become the main technical difficulty of the Flying Thor -3 Dan. After spending who knows how many brain cells and hair, Rog had a whimsical idea. Since the enemy can't fly Thor, then I will take the initiative to Flying Thunder God through the enemy's body. In order to successfully perform the Flying Thor, 3 basic conditions need to be met. The first is chakra. This is the key element of all ninjutsu. The second is the ability to accurately control chakra. This is also one of the basic elements of all ninjutsu. The third is to use the Flying Thor as a spatial anchor. As long as these 3 conditions are met, the Flying Thor can be smoothly performed. Among these 3 conditions, the Flying Thor is undoubtedly the easiest to achieve. However, unlike Flight Thor and Flight Thor 2, Flight Thor 3 required 2 spells. One was a skill that could be used by both the normal Flying Thor and Flying Thor 2nd stage. The other was a Flying Thor technique that was operated in reverse. To be more precise, it was not a reverse operation of the Flying Thor technique, but an activation technique that replaced the meridian system. This is similar to the ninjutsu scroll that has been prepared in advance. As long as there is chakra input, it can be actively activated and smoothly cast the related ninjutsu. Flying Thor, 3 stages was a tactic that had to be imprinted on the target to activate. Rog simply named it the 3 stages tactic. Although the research was a bit difficult, with the help of ninjutsu development master Hinata, he finally completed this step. With the 3-stage tactic, to replace the enemy's control of chakra, the only problem left was how to make the target possess chakra. Regarding this point, Rog found inspiration in nuclear radiation. By being in close contact with the enemy for a period of time, his chakra can be used to radiate the enemy like nuclear matter, so that the enemy has a temporary chakra constitution. Of course, this chakra radiation can't exist for a long time, but even if it can only be maintained for a short period of time, it is completely enough. The 3 stages tactic to replace chakra has been created, and the target also has a temporary chakra constitution, so he only needs to use chakra to stimulate the 3 stages tactic on the target to force the enemy to activate the Flying Thor. That's right, after completing such a complicated preparation, he can only force the enemy to activate the normal Flying Thor. Flying Thor, 3 stages. The most important and most crucial point is that this is a spacetime type ninjutsu. Helping the enemy satisfies the prerequisite of the Flying Thunder God, but only the first half of the Flying Thor, 3 stages. Just letting the enemy come to him with the Flying Thunder God is not enough to satisfy Rog's ambition. In order to make the Flying Thor, 3 stages truly have the power to completely change the outcome of the battle, he made a crazy attempt. Under normal conditions, the Flying Thor is only a very small technique, about a few centimeters in size. But the Flying Thor, 3 stages uses a Flying Thor that is much bigger. As for how big it will be, it depends on the actual needs of the battle. For example, the Flying Thor, 3 stages that Rog is using now, the Flying Thor used for spatial positioning is bigger than the Freedom Island under his feet. Such a huge Flying Thor, he can't use it in an instant, so he can only take the initiative to give up the initiative of the battle. In this way, he can not only paralyze Cain, but also by enough time for himself. The countdown just now was the countdown to the deployment of the Flying Thor. As for the 2 tasks of chakra radiation and 3 stages, he quietly completed them when he was fighting with Cain. Although he has some persistence in close combat, he is not so persistent that he has to fight in close combat. To put it simply, his action of wanting to win in close combat with Cain was fake. Everything was fake. Everything was just to complete the preparation work of the Flying Thor, 3 stages. Of course, when he was completing these preparations, he also solved the problem of letting Cain have chakra. Strictly speaking, it was not letting Cain have chakra, but just preparing the chakra for him to use the 3 stages. Cain may not have realized until now that the thunder release chakra mode that Rog is now activating is overflowing with energy. The overflowing chakra is not the energy that spilled out because of the intense battle, as Cain and Natasha thought, but the chakra that Rog intentionally released into the air. Although this chakra seems to have completely escaped his control, in reality, this chakra is still under his control. Now, the entire Freedom Island is filled with chakra that is under his control. And this chakra is the key to activating the 3 stages. By activating the 3 stages, on Cain's invisibility, Rog can force him to appear anywhere he wants with the Flying Thunder God. Even if he now holds the Kusanagi sword in front of him, Cain can only obediently bump into it. Although the conditions to use it are a little harsh and complicated, once all the preconditions are met, Cain can only appear wherever he wants. In other words, the current Freedom Island is Rog's territory of the Flying Thor. As long as he wants, no matter how unwilling Cain is, he can only let him change his position. Chapter 623. What on earth have you done? Cain's face was gloomy as he spoke to Rog in a cold tone. Why won't you accept reality? I'll say it for the last time, you've lost. Rog ignored Cain's anger and said with a calm expression on his face. Unless Cain could change his body right under his nose, he would not have any hope of winning this battle. Cain wanted to continue speaking, but after thinking about the completely incomprehensible space transfer just now, he finally shut his mouth. Although he did not know what Rog had done, he had to admit that he had fallen into an absolute disadvantage. Alright, we've been fighting for so long, it's time to end it. After saying that, Rog summoned the Kusanagi sword and waved it around. The moment he summoned the Kusanagi sword, Cain was fully alert and even prepared to release magic at any time. But it turned out that regardless of whether he was prepared or not, he could not change his ending. In just a moment, he once again flashed in front of Rog and let his heart collide with the tip of the Kusanagi sword. Pfft! The moment his heart was pierced by the Kusanagi sword, Cain uncontrollably spat out a mouthful of blood. This blood, which contained a strong power of blood, splashed in front of Rog, but was blocked by the chakra coat that came with the Raitun chakra mode, and did not stain Rog's body at all. For an ordinary creature, having his heart pierced in an instant was definitely a fatal blow. But to Cain, having his heart pierced through was more of an insult than anything else. With his physique, even if his head was chopped off, it would not be a big deal at all, let alone having his heart pierced. Unless his origin was directly damaged by the divine power, all physical injuries were nothing to him. The injury to his heart was not fatal, but this sword left an extremely deep psychological injury to Cain. After turning from a human into a vampire, this was the first time he had encountered an attack that he could not understand at all and could not block. This kind of psychological blow was even more serious than when he was besieged by heaven. This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Cain, the ancestor of the vampires, began to break down. Although Rog did not know what Cain was thinking, he did not care about it and once again launched the Flying Thor third Dan. Cain, who had his heart pierced by the Kusanagi sword, disappeared instantly. In the next second, Cain, who had already broken down, crashed into Grand Duke William like a meteor, and the two rolled more than 10 meters out of control. After sending Grand Duke William flying, Cain did not even have the time to get up before his figure disappeared once again. At the same time, Roger, who was dozens of meters away, raised his right hand and swung his Kusanagi sword. The moment he swung his Kusanagi sword, there was nothing in front of him. The moment the Kusanagi sword fell, Cain appeared in front of it. The sharp Kusanagi sword sliced through Cain's right hand without any hesitation, cutting it off completely. But for Cain, all this was far from over. Before his right hand, which was cut off by the Kusanagi sword, fell to the ground, he flashed to the barrier of the blood cage and used his body to feel the power of the blood cage. He did not try to defend himself when he hit the blood cage. It was as if he was completely desperate and let himself hit the blood cage. He had just tried it, and this passive flash on his body was not just a means of space transfer. At the moment when he was forced to move, the power of blood in his body would be seriously disturbed, cutting off the possibility of him using the power of blood to cast magic. As for using the power of blood to repair his injured body, he did not even think about it. No matter how much he recovered, he would not be able to get rid of this strange, flash state. Recovering his body would only make Logue more happy with his attacks. He lost, he really lost. Although he did not know how he lost, he could only helplessly accept the reality now. Not long after he hit the blood cage, he flashed again and disappeared. Just like the previous few times, he was forced to flash in front of Rog again. Just as Cain resigned himself to fate and waited for Rog to attack him, Rog abnormally stopped attacking. I think we can talk about the problem of your left hand now. He was definitely going to win, but Rog had no intention of killing Cain. Strictly speaking, there was no unresolvable hatred between him and Cain. Apart from the fact that he led the werewolves to kill some vampires and took away the 12 sacred artifacts of the blood breeds, he and the blood breeds were completely separate. As for the harm that the blood breeds had caused to the American people during this period of time, it had nothing to do with him. I am not an American, and I have no feelings or obligations to this country. More importantly, he was a merciful ninja. Killing was just a means to achieve his goal, and it was not where his pleasure lay. If you want it, just take it. After glancing at Rog, Cain decisively raised his left hand and motioned for Rog to cut it off and take it away. There's no hurry. I want to know. It is said that the sacred artifact, Corpse Hand, hides the secret of the world. I want to know what this secret is. A look of curiosity appeared on Rog's face. After obtaining the 12 sacred artifacts of the blood breeds, he tested the power of these 12 collectibles. All in all, although some of the 12 saint artifacts were exaggerated, most of them were in line with the truth. For example, the sacred artifact, Blood Key, which was said to be able to open the door to hell, could indeed open a dimensional portal to hell. As he did not have a good relationship with the Lord of Hell, Mephisto, he did not really go through the portal. He only sent a shadow clone to take a look. As it turned out, on the other side of the dimensional portal, it was indeed hell that he had been to twice before. As for the sacred artifact, Illusion Mirror, which was said to be able to see the past of the blood owner, and the sacred artifact, Punishment Axe, which could increase the strength of the axe wielder by dozens of times, the effects were seriously exaggerated. Although the introduction of these 12 sacred artifacts was mixed, it still did not stop him from being curious about the sacred artifact, Corpse Hand. Or rather, he was curious about the so-called secret of the world in Corpse Hand. You really want to know? After hearing Rog's question, Cain suddenly revealed a strange smile and said in a terrifying tone. Of course. Rog gave a definite answer. Since you want to know, I'll tell you. But if you die because of this secret, I won't be responsible. Chapter 624. I might die after knowing it. After hearing what Cain said, Rog became even more excited. If there is no danger, how can it be worthy of the description of the secret of the world? It's okay, go ahead. Cain didn't expect that after hearing his reminder, Rog became even more excited. In Rog's eyes, he saw a description that he had just learned not long ago. Rog's gossipy soul was ignited. Actually, this is not a particularly secret thing. Your teacher Ancient One also knows about it. Cain said softly when he saw Rog's excited face. Ancient One also knows about it? After hearing Cain's words, the fire of gossip in Rog's heart suddenly dimmed a little. Looking at you, you should have been to other planets, but I don't know if you have found out why only Earth has legends related to heaven and hell? Cain did not directly tell Rog the so-called secret of the world, but asked him back. Isn't this because of different civilizations? Speaking of which, it seems that he really hasn't heard about heaven and hell on other planets and civilizations. No, it's not just a matter of different civilizations. The more important reason is that Earth is a specially selected planet. Cain was silent for a few seconds, and then slowly said, if the universe we are in is a dimension, then heaven and hell are parallel dimensions to our dimension. Under normal circumstances, if a life of one dimension wants to enter another dimension, it only needs to choose a relatively suitable place to complete the crossing between dimensions. You have the blood key, you should know this. Hearing this, Rog nodded, indicating that he understood. However, heaven and hell did not do this. They would only choose Earth as the entrance to our dimension. The reason why this abnormal situation occurs is because we, or all the creatures on Earth, are just livestock raised in captivity by heaven and hell. They select our souls like goods and use our souls to strengthen their power. Then, they use the strengthened power to invade Earth. In order to harvest more souls, they left a so-called legend on Earth, making us willingly offer our souls to them. Back then, I discovered this point, so I began to build blood race cities, expand the scale of the blood race, and prolong the short and fragile lives of humans. When humans break free from the shackles of life, the number of souls they can harvest will naturally decrease, and Earth will have more power to resist their invasion. Unfortunately, I wasn't strong enough at the time and couldn't resist the attack of heaven. As a result, the first city that I built with my own hands was completely sealed. Human beings have never had true freedom. This planet is a cage that imprisons our bodies and souls. This is the so-called secret of the world that you want to know. Although Cain's tone was very calm, for some reason, Rog could hear the anger and dissatisfaction in his voice. Although the current Cain did not seem to be lying, he did not completely believe Cain's statement. He had never been to heaven, but he was no stranger to hell. Mephisto and the demons in hell did have the habit of using human souls to enhance their own strength, but this behavior, in his opinion, was more like an enhancement of their own strength, not a preparation for invading Earth. Your teacher, Ancient One, is now the main barrier protecting Earth from the invasion of other dimensions. If you want to know if what I said is true, you can ask her and she will tell you the answer. After saying that, Cain used his newly grown right hand to tear off his left hand and handed it to Rog. The blood key can open the door to hell, and my left hand can open the passage to heaven. If you want to go, you can go and take a look yourself. Looking at the left hand that Cain handed over, which was still dripping with blood, Rog hesitated for a moment. Then, he summoned a small metal box and asked Cain to put his left hand in it. If there is a chance, I will definitely go to heaven to take a look. After putting the metal box back into the psychic scroll, Rog said to Cain. At this moment, he thought of a very important question. Wait, before you unlocked the seal, you already had a corpse hand sacred artifact. You just said that your left hand can open the passage to heaven, then what you are giving me now, is it any different from the one you left to your descendants before? Rog didn't want any fake goods in his collection. After hearing this secret, is that all you care about? Cain suddenly felt that he was really out of touch with the times. He couldn't understand Rog's brain circuit at all. It doesn't matter whether heaven and hell want to invade Earth or not. As long as Earth still has Sorcerer Supreme, there is no need to worry too much about this. So, is the left hand you just gave me different from the previous sacred artifact corpse hand? Rog has full confidence in Ancient One's strength, so he is not worried about whether Earth will be invaded by other dimensions. And even if Ancient One is gone, there are other hidden big shots on Earth. If hell and heaven really invade Earth, these big shots will naturally come forward to solve it. There is no difference, this is the sacred artifact corpse hand you want. Cain calmed down and said in a suppressed tone, the reason why corpse hand can become a sacred artifact has nothing to do with whether it is my left hand or not. The important thing is that it can open the passage to heaven. Before being sealed, I transferred this ability to my left hand and gave my left hand to my descendants as a sacred artifact. After coming out, I found the previous left hand and took back the ability sealed on it. So, what I just gave you is the only corpse hand in this world. After receiving Kane's confirmation, Rog nodded with satisfaction. As long as it's not a fake. By the way, I have a small matter that I need your help with. Rog was planning to leave Liberty Island, but just when he was about to open the portal to return to New York's sanctum, he remembered his junior brother. Go ahead, what else is there? My junior brother is in New York for actual combat experience. If you don't mind, I hope you can arrange some targets for him to practice. In addition to these targets for practice, I think other blood breeds can choose to live in another city. Chapter 625. Although Rog had spoken in a euphemistic manner, Kane understood what he meant. Simply put, he hoped that the blood breeds could completely withdraw from New York, but before that, he needed to leave behind some of the weaker blood breeds for his junior brother Strange to practice with. If it were any other time, Kane would not have agreed to Rog's request, let alone get angry on the spot. But it was different now, he no longer had the right to bargain with Rog. No problem, how many people do you want to leave behind for your junior brother to practice with? Kane's tone was very calm, as if he was saying that the moon was beautiful tonight. I don't need a lot, a few hundred will do. All those with the strength of an earl and above will leave, as for an earl, 8 or 10 will do. With Strange's current strength, the earl of the blood breeds was almost his limit. Of course, this was only Rog's speculation based on the number of spells he had mastered so far. As a mage, Strange did not need to train hard to improve his strength like he did. His strength was only related to the number of spells he had mastered. 10 earls, 100 viscounts, 200 barons. After thinking for a second or two, Kane gave Rog an accurate answer. Okay. Although 310 blood breeds was not a lot, it was enough for Strange to complete this practical experience. As for whether he wanted to continue fighting with the blood breeds in the future, that was his own business. Rog would not always stay by his side to protect him. Aren't you going to say hello to the people outside? I remember that you have a good relationship with Fu Yen. Kane suddenly spoke just as Rog was about to use the portal magic to return to the New York Holy Cathedral. Let me correct you, my relationship with Fu Yen is not very good. But, you can spare the life of the woman on the Quinjet, I do have a little friendship with her. Rog used chakra to sense the Quinjet outside Liberty Island and answered casually. Then, under the watchful eyes of Kane and Grand Duke William, he opened the portal back to the New York sanctum and walked straight in. When Rog's figure completely disappeared, Grand Duke William, who had been watching the battle for a long time, slowly walked up to Kane, and said respectfully, Ancestor, do you need me to warn the people outside? No need, we've lost enough blood tonight. Kane looked up at the bright moon and manipulated the power of blood in his body to restore his left hand. After regenerating his left hand, Kane turned into a ball of black blood and disappeared before Grand Duke William. Grand Duke William didn't dare to be careless when he saw the primogenitor turn into blood dance. He immediately removed the blood prison. New York Temple, Restaurant. When Strange returns, help me tell him that starting tomorrow, there will only be 310 blood breeds left in New York. What he needs to do is to get rid of the last 310 vampires. After that, he can return to Camartage. Rog said quietly as he looked at Wang, who was secretly eating his midnight snack. Although Ancient One arranged for him to guide Strange, he can't guide him all the time. Both Ancient One and Strange are very clear about this. It's basically enough to take Strange to fight for a few days and give him some combat advice. Strange is an extremely talented sorcerer. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to take over the Time Stone and the title of Sorcerer Supreme from Ancient One in the future. Therefore, to Logue, helping Strange prepare a training environment that was suitable for his current strength was the last bit of help he could provide. Okay, I got it. Wang looked up at Rog and then continued to destroy the midnight snacks in front of him that can be called heat bombs. No wonder you are getting rounder and rounder. After thinking this in his heart, Rog opened the portal again. On the other side of the portal is Camartage in the morning. Before returning to Konoha, he plans to meet Ancient One and confirm the secret of the world mentioned by Kane. Although Kane is unlikely to deceive him in that situation, especially when he knows that he is a student of Ancient One. He still doesn't believe Kane's statement 100%. Kane is a vampire, an old vampire who has lived for who knows how many years. What he said can be believed, but not all of it. In the hall where it is basically impossible to have any visitors at ordinary times, Rog saw Ancient One. To be precise, he saw Ancient One who was making tea and reading a book. Ancient One didn't seem to be surprised at Roger's arrival, and he even prepared a steaming cup of honey tea for him. Sensei. After saying hello to Ancient One, Rog sat opposite her and took a sip of the honey tea. After putting down the honey tea that had basically no change in taste, he told Ancient One about the secret of the world he learned from Kane's mouth and asked Ancient One about its authenticity. You should already have your own judgment about the answer to this question. What Kane said is basically right, but things are not as bad as he thought. Strictly speaking, hell and heaven are no different from multidimensional dimensions such as the dark dimension. If there is a difference, it is that hell and heaven are a little more active. Since you learned this news from Kane, you should also have a way to go to heaven. There are some records about heaven in the library. If you are interested, you can take it back and have a look. After saying that, Ancient One picked up the Sanskrit book that he had put down and continued to browse. Looking at Ancient One's indifferent expression, Rog frowned slightly. He didn't know if it was his own illusion, but he always felt that both Kane and Ancient One were tempting him to go to heaven to see it in person. After saying goodbye to Ancient One, he did not go to Kamartaj's library to look for the ancient books that recorded the information of heaven, but used the portal to return to Konoha's headquarters in Washington. Whether it's heaven or hell, whoever wants to go, he doesn't want to go anyway. After taking a comfortable hot bath and letting his former personal assistant Sharon Carter give him a massage to relax, he returned to his bedroom and began to rest for the night. Early the next morning, before he got up, he was awakened by the mechanical synthesized voice of Number 3. Sir, Tawny Stark is at the headquarters gate now. Do you want to let him in? Tawny? What is he doing here? Rog, who had just gotten up, was too lazy to think about what Tawny wanted and said directly to Number 3, let him in and take him to the living room to wait for me. Chapter 626. It's not like you to get up so early. In his private reception room, Rog took a sip of the freshly brewed black coffee and said to Tawny sitting in front of him. I didn't get up early, I didn't sleep at all. Natasha said that she saw you and Kane on Liberty Island last night. Didn't you say that you didn't plan to fight against the vampires? Why did you suddenly fight with their ancestors? Tawny also picked up the black coffee and took a sip and said slowly. My teacher arranged a task for me. In order to complete this task as soon as possible, I fought with Kane. Rog didn't hide anything from Tawny and said casually. Your teacher? You have a teacher? Tawny just wanted to ask about Rog's fight with Kane last night, but he didn't expect to hear such news. Of course I have a teacher, for example, Hinata is my teacher. Although he has no intention of hiding what happened last night, Rog doesn't intend to tell Tawny the identity of Ancient One. Well, I just came here to ask what you did to Kane last night. After the battle between you and Kane last night, the vampires in New York began a large-scale evacuation. Although not all of them were evacuated, it was much less than before. As the current head of Avengers, vampires are now Tawny's main job. It's nothing, I just beat Kane, took some spoils from him, and then made some small conditions for him. The vampires evacuating New York is one of the conditions. Having said that, Rog paused for a moment, and then continued, you didn't come to me early in the morning just to know this, right? It's only 7:00 now. Rog went to bed at 2 or 3:00 last night, and now he is in a state of serious lack of sleep. If it weren't for Tawny, he would never have planned to get up. Strictly speaking, it's for this. Looking at Rog, who didn't seem to be completely awake, Tawny said with a smile. If you don't have anything else, I'll go back to sleep first. You know how to leave, so I won't send you off. After that, Rog stood up and planned to go back to sleep. However, at the moment he stood up, Tawny said again, well, wait a minute, there are some other things. What else? Rog turned to look at Tawny. Jinjin, and the people of Wakanda. Not sure if it was because he felt a little embarrassed, but Tawny showed an expression that Rog had never seen before. Wait, say that again. I'm afraid I misheard you. I said, revive the king and the people of Wakanda, Tony repeated. This has nothing to do with the Restoration Alliance, right? Or are you working as a lobbyist for the politicians again? Looking at Tony's expression, Roger revealed a disappointed expression. It shouldn't be. How did the dignified Iron Man become like this? It's not wrong to say that I'm a lobbyist, but it's not what you think. Rog sat down again and motioned to Tawny to continue. Jinjin is my personal request. Although there is still a very small part of Jinjin in circulation on the market, the quantity is different. You now have all the Jinjin in Wakanda, and I hope to buy some from you. Tawny's tone began to become serious. Let's not talk about buying or not. Tell me first, what do you need Jinjin for? Although Konoha took away all the Jinjin in Wakanda, there was still a part of Jinjin that spread out a long time ago. After all, Wakanda was not so developed from the beginning. They also developed their unique Jinjin technology step by step from scratch. So a long time ago, it was not particularly strange that a part of Jinjin spread out. If Rog remembered correctly, in the Museum of Great Britain, there were some tools made of Jinjin. Of course, the museum did not find this, and it just regarded those Jinjin tools as antiques. After the battle with Kane, I gradually discovered the shortcomings of the Iron Man armor. I'm not saying that I can't develop a better suit, it's just that the materials on the Earth limit this. So if you don't mind, I hope to get some Jinjin from you to develop a new model of battle suit. Tawny directly said his plan without concealing Rog's plan. Rog was silent for a few seconds, and then asked, which model of battle suit have you developed now? Number 65. Mark 65? In Rog's memory, the last battle suit invented by Tawny was Mark 85. And before Mark 85, it was Mark 50. However, this was a matter of the parallel universe movie universe, so no one knew if Tony could still invent the Mark 85 that was the same as the one in his memory. After thinking for more than 10 seconds, Rog said again, I won't sell Jinjin to you. Hearing this, Tawny's face dimmed instantly. How much do you need? Just report the number directly, and I'll have someone send it to the headquarters. Tawny wanted to continue to say something, but he didn't expect Rog to give him an unexpected answer. You. Tawny didn't know what to say for a while. Don't talk about me, it's just some Jinjin, don't worry about it. If someone else came to buy Jinjin, Rog would only let him go out and turn left to leave Konoha. But Tawny is different, anyway, they are still friends. In the entire Avengers, only Tawny and Hulk are his true friends. The problem of Jinjin is solved, let's talk about the people of Wakanda, this shouldn't be your personal request, right? Rog looked at Tawny and said slowly. This is an official request. It's not the White House or the military, it's the request of dozens of countries. You have taken Jinjin, and the land of Wakanda has been given to the werewolves. The people of Wakanda have helped your werewolves build a country that belongs to them. They have already paid enough, so if you don't mind, those countries hope that you can release the people of Wakanda and give them the most basic respect for human rights. Tawny also knew that this request was somewhat unreasonable, but there was no other way. The Avengers needed the support of other countries, so he could only bite the bullet and say this to Rog. If I don't release them, will those countries decide to form a joint force to suppress me? Human rights respect, that's a nice way to put it. Even if he used his toes to think, he knew what they were planning. It didn't matter whether people had human rights or not, they wanted nothing more than the technological talents of Wakanda. Chapter 627. The vibranium of Wakanda was indeed taken away by Konoha, but Konoha didn't touch the people of Wakanda. Except for those who died in battle and those who resisted on the spot, most of the people of Wakanda survived. Even the former king of Wakanda, Black Panther T'Challa, was still alive. It's just that he didn't have the extraordinary power granted by the Black Panther armor and the Black Panther god. He turned from a superhero with strength far beyond ordinary people back to an ordinary person. That's not necessarily the case. They just hope, they didn't say that you must release them. Compared to others, Tawny obviously knew Rog a little more. To be precise, Tawny was one of the few people in the world who knew Rog's true character. Forcing Rog to release the people of Wakanda, let alone now, even Rog when he first met him would not agree. At that time, although Rog also had extraordinary power, compared to now, he at least looked in the category of human at that time. As for now, instead of saying that he was human, it was better to say that he was a god like Thor. So it's just hope. I thought they were ready to go to war with Konoha. Go back and tell them, I won't release the people. If they are dissatisfied, I don't mind them declaring war with Konoha and using force to persuade me. Rog clearly informed Tawny of his decision. As for how Tawny would convey his decision, he didn't particularly care. Speaking of which, since the last battle of Wakanda, Konoha didn't seem to have any large-scale operations on Earth for a long time. After chatting with Rog for a while, Tawny left Konoha in his Audi sports car that already had an automatic driving function. Watching Tawny's sports car disappear at the gate of Konoha, Rog said to the ubiquitous, Number 3, send a message to Number 2, ask him to prepare 10 tons of vibranium, and send the vibranium to the headquarters before noon tomorrow. In the end, Tony didn't tell him how much vibranium he needed, so he gave Tony 10 tons of vibranium according to the maximum amount he could use. 10 tons of vibranium was more than enough to build a new Iron Man armor. Yes, sir. After instructing Number 3, Rog returned to his bedroom with the Flying Thunder God and began to sleep. Time flashed by, and a week passed in the blink of an eye. In this week, in addition to basic life activities such as eating, sleeping, and playing games, Rog only did 3 things. The first was the Rinnegan ninjutsu that Hina long time. And Hina. These ninjutsu unique to Rinnegan were developed by Hina early, but due to the lack of Rinnegan, Rog didn't practice it much. Similarly, he couldn't determine whether these Rinnegan ninjutsu developed by Hina were correct. However, it turned out that Hina was worthy of being a new life evolved from super artificial intelligence. The Rinnegan ninjutsu she derived was no different from the ones in Rog's memory. Of course, this was also because of the lack of reference objects. Anyway, from Rog's point of view, there was nothing wrong with these Rinnegan ninjutsu, and their power was similar to what he remembered. The second thing was that he went to Igo Star and confirmed the final time of the God Tree's maturity with Igo. Earth time, 77 days. This was Igo's reply to him, which was about 2.5 months, which was not much different from the original time. As for the third thing, he went to the original Wakanda, which has now been renamed the Summit of the Mountains, by Bran and others. As for why Bran and others gave such a name to their new home, he didn't ask. Anyway, this was the decision of Bran and others, as long as they are happy, it's fine. It was a bit different from what he imagined. After having their own country, Bran and other werewolves didn't continue to live a casual life as he imagined, but seriously built their own country. When he went to the Summit of the Mountains, Bran and others had built 3 reasonably good cities, and they already had their own laws and currency system. This was something he didn't expect when he gave Wakanda to Bran and others. In addition, the only thing worth paying attention to was that his junior brother Strange finally completed his first actual combat experience and killed all the vampires in New York. However, only 100 vampires died in Strange's hands. As for the rest, they were dealt with by the vampires and the military. So, 2 days ago, New York became the only city in the United States without any vampires. After finishing the day's practice of Rinnegan, Rog left Konoha's headquarters and returned to Tatooine. Under the management of Hinata and Number 2, Konoha's hidden village on Tatooine was expanded and divided into 2 parts, the inner city and the outer city. The original Konoha hidden village became the current inner city. Outside the inner city, a new outer city was being built in full swing. More importantly, the current Konoha hidden village is no longer an exclusive hidden village of Konoha's people. In the outer city of Konoha hidden village, there are many aliens that Rog can't recognize. Since Konoha hidden village began interstellar trade, Tatooine has become the most popular emerging planet in the universe. Every day, a large number of intelligent races come to Tatooine, trying to establish a stable trade relationship with Konoha, or directly settle on Tatooine. The reason for this situation is that the weapons, equipment, and technological products developed by Konoha Hidden Village are cheap and are strongly welcomed by other planets. On the other hand, it's because this is the planet of the fourth Hokage. That's right, it's because this is Rog's planet. After learning that Tatooine is Rog's planet, those who heard about his achievements and wanted to see him came to Tatooine one after another. But unfortunately, they didn't even enter the inner city of Konoha's Hidden Village, let alone see Rog. Although Konoha has now opened interstellar trade and doesn't exclude people from other planets from coming to Tatooine. But this doesn't mean that they can go anywhere. The inner city of Konoha is one of the areas that they can't enter without permission. Of course, there are some people who don't believe in heresy and have to provoke some of Konoha's security forces. The end of these guys, without exception, were all sent outside the city to feed the beasts by Konoha's security forces. Chapter 628. He had to say that the feeling of being a hands-off boss was really cool. When he got the black boulder from Jiaing, Rog didn't expect that Tatooine, which was swallowed by the hive to become a barren planet, could develop to this extent. According to the current level of development, Tatooine can't become a well-known fairyland like Asgard, but at least it can become a well-known area of the universe. Very good, very good. Looking at the development of Tatooine and Konoha's Hidden Village, Rog, sitting in the Hokage's office, nodded with satisfaction. After reading the development plan of Konoha prepared by Hinata and Number 2, he sensed the Flying Thor technique on Fenrir. It has been a while since Fenrir swallowed the Black Panther God's divine fragment, and he doesn't know if he has become a god recently. Rog doesn't expect Fenrir to become a god like Black Panther God Bast, but he also hopes that Fenrir can go further. Although Fenrir was still alive and kicking, his lifespan had been swindled back by Logue from Mephisto. If Fenrir can't complete the evolution of life level before the end of his lifespan, then there are basically only two paths left in front of him. The first is to say goodbye to the world again as a lone wolf. The second is to transform into an undead creature. And to transform into an undead creature, he needs the help of the goddess of death, Hel. Rog doesn't have the power of death to help him transform. As for using undead magic to help Fenrir transform, this approach was not in Rog's consideration from the beginning. First of all, he is not proficient in undead magic. Secondly, the undead creatures transformed by undead magic will more or less have the sequelae of a decline in strength and IQ. Fenrir is not a particularly smart demon wolf. If his IQ continues to decline, Rog is worried that he will become a husky sooner or later. After establishing a connection with the Flying Thor technique on Fenrir, Rog's figure disappeared directly from the Hokage's office and came to the primitive forest that is more lush than the Amazon forest. After seeing Rog's arrival, Fenrir directly stretched out its moist tongue and licked him. However, just as he stuck out his tongue, Rog disappeared in front of him and appeared above his head. Don't lick me. I'll be traumatized if you lick me. Rog didn't reject pet dogs, but for a pet dog of Fenrir's size, it was better not to be licked. Roar! Fenrir let out a low cry, indicating that it understood. How are you digesting the quintessence fragments of the Black Panther God? You can't just stay in the wild and not return to Konoha. Black will miss you. Ever since Fenrir devoured the Black Panther God's quintessence fragment and became extremely energetic, Blackie temporarily abandoned this host and continued to live alone. Alright, without Xiao Hei translating, he simply couldn't understand what Fenrir was saying. Rog shook his head helplessly and switched the Sharingan of his left eye to the Byakugan and began to see the specific situation of Fenrir. Compared with before, Fenrir's body was not much different except that it was a little stronger. If there was a difference, it was that there was a relatively small energy crystal in Fenrir's brain. This energy crystal was in the shape of a hexagonal crystal, exuding a green light, and its volume was only the size of Rog's finger. In Fenrir's body, he didn't see the quintessence fragments of the Black Panther God Batet, nor did he feel any divine power of the Black Panther God Batet. Something is wrong. It stands to reason that Fenrir should have digested the quintessence fragments of the Black Panther God Batet by now. But the problem is that Fenrir doesn't look like a change in life level. It can't be that cats are incompatible with canines, right? After thinking for a few minutes, Rog gave up thinking. he wasn't proficient in the god system at all. If he didn't happen to understand a little bit in the process of learning magic, his understanding of the god system wouldn't be more than the ordinary people on Earth. Since he couldn't figure it out, then he wouldn't think about it. You have been living here alone for a while. Are you interested in going to Warnerheim and meet your former master, Hela? Rog touched the soft hair on Fenrir's head and said with a smile. However, he didn't expect that after hearing his words, Fenrir suddenly lay down and made a fawning cry for mercy. What's wrong with this guy? After being stunned for a while, he finally reacted. Fenrir, this stupid wolf, thought that he was testing him again. I'm not testing you, I'm serious. I don't know what's going on with your current situation. Hela is your former master, she may know how to deal with your current problem. After hearing his explanation, Fenrir stood up again and let out an excited howl. Okay, then it's decided. I'll take you to Warnerheim in a few days and see how to solve your problem. After patting Fenrir's big head, Rog returned to the Hokage's office with the Flying Thunder God. The matter with Fenrir has come to an end for the time being, so the next thing is naturally to consult Hinata's opinion. Although Hinata basically won't violate his decision if he asks. But this kind of thing, it's better to respect Hinata's decision. This has nothing to do with identity, strength, gender, or anything, it's purely a respect from the heart. Hinata's office is next to the Hokage's office. Her current identity is not the Hokage's assistant, but the Minister of Administration and the Elder of Konoha Hidden Village. The administration was originally an institution to assist the Hokage in managing Konoha's government affairs, but because Rog ignored the specific affairs all year round, these things were handed over to Hinata. It's worth mentioning that the artificial intelligence system, No. 2-inch of Konoha Hidden Village is also a member of the administration. In terms of organization, it belongs to the Deputy Minister of the Administration. This kind of thing is an abnormal phenomenon on Earth, but in the universe, it's nothing. The ruler of the Kari Empire, one of the 3 empires in the universe, the Supreme Intelligence, is a life computer, and World Mind, the master behind Xander's new star regiment, is also a super life computer. Therefore, the fact that the artificial intelligence, number 2, is the deputy minister of the administration of Konoha Hidden Village is not particularly strange for people of other planets. In other words, if Konoha Hidden Village, which has opened interstellar trade, doesn't even have such a super artificial intelligence, that's abnormal. After all, the energy and computing ability of flesh and blood creatures have limits, and special existences such as artificial intelligence are the best assistants of flesh and blood creatures in the era of interstellar civilization. Chapter 629. Warnerheim. Captain, when do you think those frost giants and flame giants will leave Warnerheim? The war has been in a stalemate for so long, they should be thinking about retreating by now. A young Asgard soldier wearing light silver armor asked the captain walking in front of him. How would I know? I'm not the commander of the frost giants and flame giants. The captain with a huge scar on his face replied helplessly. Ever since the goddess of death Hela brought the frost giants and flame giants to Warnerheim, Warnerheim was completely lively. It wasn't just Warner Protoss that was dragged into the quagmire of war, even Asgard's army was dragged into the quagmire of war. What was even more troublesome was that the goddess of death Hela's army didn't care if they were facing Warner Protoss's army or Asgard's army, they would launch wild beast-like attacks. Only the goddess of death Hela could declare war on both Warner Protoss and Asgard with 2 armies of frost giants and flame giants. What was even more surprising was that Hela's frost giants and flame giants army actually suppressed the Warner Protoss and Asgard's army. Just when the young Asgard soldier with a spear was about to continue asking his captain, a portal with a diameter of more than 20 meters and shining with golden sparks appeared not far in front of them. Everyone on guard. As soon as this huge golden portal was formed, the captain of this patrol team gave the order for everyone to be on guard and clenched the 1-meter-long greatsword in his hand. Frost giants? Or flame giants? When all the Asgard soldiers stared at this huge golden portal, a huge wolf head with glossy black fur stretched out from the portal. Then, a huge black wolf with a height of 5 to 6 meters and a body length of more than 10 meters walked out of the portal. This is... When seeing this huge black wolf, the captain of the patrol team suddenly frowned. In just a few seconds, he recognized the origin of this huge black wolf. This is the giant wolf Fenrir, the mount of the fourth Hokage Rog. The giant wolf Fenrir, who was once the mount of the goddess of death, was resurrected by the fourth Hokage Rog and became his mount. This was not a secret in the first place. Furthermore, after reviving Fenrir, Rog also rode Fenrir to participate in Jotunheim's crusade against the goddess of death, Hel. Most of the Asgard warriors who participated in that war had seen Fenrir. Even if he didn't want to, he had no choice. As long as the huge Fenrir appeared on the battlefield, he would definitely become the focus of attention. Don't do anything, it's fourth Hokage Rog's mount, Fenrir. After hearing the captain's warning, the other Asgard soldiers in the patrol team let out a sigh of relief. The fourth Hokage and their current king Thor are good friends. This is a well-known fact in Asgard. When the amazing Fenrir came out of the portal, Rog and Hinata also came out of the portal. Rog originally planned to ride Fenrir, but after thinking about it, he dispelled the idea. He and Hinata just came to Warnerheim to relax, not to fight. There is no need to ride Fenrir. And always using Fenrir as a mount is not conducive to Fenrir's mental health growth. Asgard's patrol team? As soon as he stepped out of the portal, Rog saw the Asgard patrol team with less than 10 people. Why are you here? I remember that the nearest camp should be more than 10 kilometers away, right? Rog came to the patrol team's captain and asked in confusion. When opening the portal, he deliberately chose a location far away from the camp. As a result, he didn't expect to run into Asgard's patrol team as soon as he came out. Sir, you are right, the camp is indeed more than 10 kilometers away. The recent battle has been a bit stalemate, so the general asked us to expand the scope of the patrol. The patrol captain replied respectfully as if he was talking to a superior officer. Although Rog doesn't have any position in Asgard now, the patrol team's captain still doesn't dare to be disrespectful to him. This has nothing to do with whether Rog and Thor are good friends or not, it's purely because of his terrifying strength. No matter when, a strong person is worthy of respect. So that's how it is. Sir, do you want to go to the camp? If necessary, we can help you lead the way. The patrol team's captain continued. No, I just came here to take a look, you can continue to patrol, don't worry about me. After saying that, Rog waved to Fenrir and disappeared in front of the patrol team with Hinata and Fenrir. After leaving the forest where the patrol team was located, Rog used chakra perception. Although he has been to Warnerheim several times, every time he came, it was basically a battle. The only exception was when he went to seek help from Hela. After using chakra perception to confirm the location of the nearest city, his body flashed with a brilliant aurora-like light. In a few seconds, these brilliant lights completely enveloped them. Quantum transmission. The brilliant aurora-like light flashed, and the figures of Rog and others completely disappeared. Red Rock City. This is the nearest city that appeared in Rog's perception. And in this city, he didn't perceive any life signals of frost giants and flame giants. This means that this city is still under the rule of Warner Protoss. Rog didn't directly teleport Hinata and Fenrir to the city, but teleported to the vicinity of Red Rock City. Fenrir, get down. Before entering the city, he needs to help himself and Fenrir disguise themselves. He has a good reputation in Asgard, which means that his reputation in Warner Protoss is very bad. In order to avoid some unpleasant things, mainly because he doesn't want to ruin his and Hinata's trip, he intends to change his appearance to enter the city. As for Fenrir, not many people in Warner Protoss have seen Fenrir. But the problem is that Fenrir's size is too big, and letting him enter the city in his true form is not small. When Fenrir lay on the ground and pointed his big head at Rog, Rog raised his right hand and put his palm on Fenrir's head. Ninjutsu, Orc Transformation. Boom! A huge white smoke appeared out of thin air and completely enveloped Fenrir. When the smoke dissipated, Fenrir, who was severely reduced in size, appeared in front of Rog. Regarding how to solve the problem of Fenrir's too big body, Rog finally gave up the idea of using magic and studied ninjutsu instead. Chapter 630. Orc Transformation. This is just a name that Rog casually came up with. Anyway, this ninjutsu will only be used on Fenrir. he won't use it on anyone else. If you want to use this ninjutsu, there is a prerequisite, and that is to use it with your summoned beast. Through the connection between yourself and the summoned beast, you can help the summoned beast who doesn't know ninjutsu to use the transformation jutsu. This is the effect of orc transformation. Beast refers to the summoned beast. Human refers to the ninja who uses the jutsu. Transformation is the effect of this jutsu. Simple and crude name, simple and crude effect. After Rog and Fenrir used the orc transformation together, Fenrir's body size changed from more than 10 meters to more than 1 meter, looking no different from an ordinary wolf in the wild. After confirming that there was nothing wrong with the shrunken Fenrir, Rog used the transformation jutsu. Boom! After the white smoke dissipated, he turned into Minato. Okay, let's go. Although Minato's appearance is not as good as his original appearance, Rog didn't care too much about this. And Hinata isn't the kind of superficial person who cares about appearances. Not to mention that he just turned into Minato. Even if he turned into Danzo, Hinata wouldn't mind at all. But at that time, it will be Rog himself who will mind. After changing his appearance, he took Hinata and the shrunken Fenrir to Red Rock City. After paying a few gold coins at the city gate, they successfully entered the city famous for its Red Rock, Oregon. Since he took Hinata to Warnerheim for a tour, Rog certainly didn't forget to make some preparations in advance. Red Rock is one of the unique resources of Warnerheim. Compared with ordinary rocks, Red Rock has a certain affinity with magic and is suitable for building magic-related buildings such as mage towers or large magic formations. Because of the outbreak of war everywhere, Red Rock City, which is far away from the front line, inevitably has some atmosphere. Not long after entering Red Rock City, Rog and the others encountered 3 heavily armed patrol teams. It seems that the people of Warnerheim are not doing well recently. Rog said with a sigh. The ones who suffer the most in war are always these ordinary people. Hinata turned to look at the lifeless residents of Red Rock City and said slowly. Fenrir also expressed its opinion. Forget it, this is not something we can interfere with. After that, Rog held Hinata's hand and walked towards the business district of Red Rock City. Traveling was basically inseparable from the 4 basic principles of eating, drinking, and playing. If they weren't here for sightseeing, then going to the business district was definitely a good choice. Unlike the cities on Earth, Red Rock City, or rather, most of the cities in Warnerheim, retained a more pure style. The buildings in the city weren't very tall, and the shops weren't very big either. This was especially true for the taverns and weapon shops, which made Roger feel like he had returned to the Middle Ages in Europe. Of course, in terms of time, it should be the Middle Ages in Europe that referenced the style of Warnerheim. In a tavern called Afterglow of the Sunset, Rog said to the waiter standing beside him. Give me one of your signature dishes and a bottle of your best liquor. After that, Rog gave the waiter a few gold coins. Although Warnerheim isn't Earth, gold is still the hard currency here. However, gold can only be regarded as a relatively common currency, while energy crystals are the real high-grade currency. Whether it's these gold coins or energy crystals, Rog has a lot of them in his summon scroll, enough for him and Hinata to squander in Warnerheim. Sir, do you want to prepare some food for your pet? The waiter put the gold coins in his pocket with a smile and continued to ask. No need. Although Fenrir now looked like an ordinary wild wolf, his body was still that of an astonishingly huge wolf. The amount of food prepared by the tavern can't even be regarded as snacks for Fenrir. Yes, sir. After having an authentic Warnerheim lunch with Hinata, Rog took Hinata and Fenrir out of the tavern. However, not long after they left the tavern, a team of armored Warner Protoss soldiers stopped in front of them. Your wolf is good, I'll take it. A knight riding a dragon condescendingly said to Rog. Then, he threw a bag of gold coins to Rog. Isn't this development a bit casual? I'm just here for a vacation. Rog didn't answer, nor did he catch the bag of gold coins thrown to him. Just when the bag full of gold coins was about to be thrown to him, an invisible barrier blocked the way of the bag. Clang! Clang! The gold coins fell out of the pouch and clattered to the ground. The scattered gold coins suddenly attracted the attention of the surrounding pedestrians, and the face of the knight on the dragon became gloomy. "You don't know what's good for you." The knight on the dragon snorted coldly. At the same time, the Warner Protoss soldiers blocking the way of Rog and others pulled out their swords. Looking at the actions of these soldiers, Rog helplessly shook his head, then said to Fenrir, "Fenrir, teach them a lesson, don't kill them." Rog didn't expect that he, who just came to Red Rock City for a vacation, would encounter such a thing that only happens in novels. Whoa! After hearing Rog's order, Fenrir excitedly howled. Then, he found that he was still in the form of a small wolf. Rog didn't remove the transformation technique on Fenrir. In fact, dealing with these soldiers doesn't need to let Fenrir show his true form. Kill this guy, leave the wolf and the woman. The knight on the dragon gave the order to attack. In the beginning, his attention was on Fenrir. When he seriously looked at Rog, he found Hinata standing behind Rog. So, his target changed from Fenrir to Fenrir and Hinata. Has the knight education of Warner Protoss fallen to this point? Looking at the greedy eyes of the dragon knight, Rog decided to give this guy who came out of nowhere a little unforgettable education. Genjutsu, Naruto technique. Rog, who stood in the same place, didn't even raise his hand, and the Naruto technique, which can let the victim see the most terrifying thing in his heart, fell on the dragon knight. At the same time, the smaller Fenrir, like a black shadow, rushed to the Warner Protoss soldier in front of him. Ah! Chapter 631. Rog heard an indescribable scream after throwing the Hell's View that could only see the most terrifying scene in one's heart onto the knight in golden armor. The sudden scream of the Earth Dragon Knight not only startled Rog, but also the Warner Protoss soldiers. The scream even made them ignore Fenrir, who was attacking like lightning. Chi! Chi! Although Fenrir was also startled by the scream, his movements were not affected in the slightest. Like a shadow, he pounced on a Warner Protoss soldier. Without Roger's order, there would only be one way for Fenrir to deal with these Vanir soldiers, and that was to bite them to death, one at a time, and directly bite these ignorant fellows to death. Especially the guy riding the Earth Dragon Knight. By me? Are you kidding me? I'm the great wolf Fenrir who fought in the Nine Worlds, a terrifying monster that shook the earth. The Earth Dragon Knight's scream became the background sound of Fenrir's battle. It only took Fenrir more than 10 seconds to dispose of the fully armed Warner Protoss soldiers, making them completely lose their fighting power. Woo! After defeating the team of mediocre Warner Protoss soldiers, Fenrir raised his head and howled. Then, with a look of disdain, he returned to Rog's side. It wasn't until Fenrir returned to his side that Rog removed the illusion on the Earth Dragon Knight, putting an end to that incomparably miserable cry. Hoo-hoo-hoo! After the effect of the Hell's View disappeared, the Earth Dragon Knight's consciousness also returned to the real world, gasping for breath. When he finally calmed down the fear in his heart, he saw a scene that he never imagined. A whole team of fully armed Warner Protoss soldiers, without exception, were all lying on the ground. Bright red blood stained the surrounding ground, and the well-made weapons and armors were either completely broken or severely damaged. What's going on? How is this possible? As the commander of this team, the Earth Dragon Knight was very clear about the strength of the team. Although the number of people in the team was not large, every one of them was a veteran with rich combat experience for many years. Even if they encountered a frost giant or a flame giant of the same number, this team had the confidence to win. Although the Earth Dragon Knight's conduct was not very good, his eyesight was not bad. Just by glancing at the wounds on these soldiers, he judged that Fenrir was the only one who did it. The wounds on these soldiers were all caused by the bites of wild beasts, and without exception, they were all attacked once. Was it all done by that wolf? Thinking of this, the Earth Dragon Knight looked at Fenrir and Loge with a grave expression. If a tamed magical beast already possessed such terrifying strength, then what kind of strength would the person who tamed this magical beast possess? The Earth Dragon Knight unconsciously swallowed his saliva. This is troublesome. Although the Earth Dragon Knight didn't say a word, his expression revealed his panic and fear at this time. After looking at Rog and Fenrir for a few seconds without saying a word, the Earth Dragon Knight made a move that any normal person would do. Run. Run immediately. The Earth Dragon Knight didn't hesitate, his right hand suddenly exerted force, and directly pulled the reins of the Earth Dragon, trying to ride the Earth Dragon away from here. The moment he pulled the reins, Rog whistled at Fenrir. Although Fenrir didn't stay with Rog for a long time, in any case, he was Rog's psychic beast. The moment he heard Rog's whistle, Fenrir understood his meaning. Woo-woo. Fenrir didn't howl to the sky like before, but bared his teeth and let out a low cry. Fenrir's low cry wasn't loud, and it might not be heard if one was a little further away. But in the next second after he let out a low cry, that nearly 2 meters tall and 5 to 6 meters long drake suddenly fell to the ground as if it had met its natural predator. No matter how the knight on its back urged it to move, it didn't move at all. You want to leave without saying a word, isn't that a bit impolite? If it was any other time, Rog wouldn't have bothered to pay attention to an existence like the Earth Dragon Knight. But now, he didn't intend to let this guy off so easily. The armor on the Earth Dragon Knight wasn't ordinary goods. The workmanship was excellent, and the material was rare. More importantly, it was a set of enchanted armor. And on the chest position of the armor, there was a certain family emblem engraved. This guy was a noble child, and a descendant of a powerful family. It wasn't difficult to infer this from the arrogance this guy showed just now, as well as the team he brought with him. The Warner Protoss soldiers lying on the ground weren't ordinary goods, but regular soldiers. Don't look at how they only lasted for more than 10 seconds in front of Fenrir. That was because the difference in strength between them and Fenrir was too great. What do you want? No matter how hard he tried, the Earth Dragon Knight wasn't willing to stand up, so the knight in golden armor finally spoke. It's not what I want, but what are you going to do? I just finished eating with my woman, and as soon as I went out, I met a man who wanted to sell my wolf. If I didn't agree, this guy would kill me, and take away my woman and my wolf. You tell me, if you encountered such a thing, what would you do? Rog said as he walked toward the Earth Dragon Knight. When he passed by the soldiers lying on the ground, he jumped lightly, crossing the soldiers and the bloodstains on the ground. I can compensate you, no matter what you want, I can compensate you. The Earth Dragon Knight immediately said, for fear that he would anger Rog if he spoke too slowly. Rog didn't answer, but continued to walk toward him with a smile. I can apologize to you, as long as you agree, I will immediately apologize to you. The Earth Dragon Knight continued to say, but Rog was still unmoved, and even his pace didn't change in the slightest. You can't touch me, the female Thor Vigtigny and Wygelf are my cousins, if you dare to touch me, they won't spare you. The Earth Dragon Knight almost shouted this sentence. Vigtigny and Wygelf? Rog stopped moving forward, and looked at the Earth Dragon Knight with a smile. Is there no one else in Warner Protoss? How come it's these two sisters again? Seeing that Rog finally stopped, the Earth Dragon Knight finally breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that it's okay, I'm saved. Thinking of this, the arrogant look of the Earth Dragon Knight slowly emerged on his face. Chapter 632. Did this guy learn how to change his face? Looking at the Earth Dragon Knight's arrogant expression, Rog shook his head helplessly. No matter which world it was, there would always be such self-righteous guys. So the twins Thor are your cousins. Interesting. But I'm a little curious. Do they know that they have a cousin who is running amok outside? Vigtigny and Wygelf could be regarded as the Warner Protoss that Rog knew the most. Although some unpleasant things would happen every time they met, they were still considered acquaintances no matter what. What do you mean by that? The Earth Dragon Knight realized that things didn't seem to develop as he imagined. In his opinion, Rog would be more or less respectful after knowing that Vigtigny and Wygelf were his cousins. But now, it seemed that things weren't going as he imagined. Nothing. I'm just a little curious. If I remember correctly, the two sisters are very reasonable people. They definitely won't bully others with their power. After hearing Rog's words, the Earth Dragon Knight gradually put away his arrogant expression. Even until now, he still didn't know who Rog was. But from Rog's tone, he seemed to be very familiar with Vigtigny and Wygelf. Could it be that he's a cousin's friend? The Earth Dragon Knight couldn't help but have this thought. No, it shouldn't be. Although the Earth Dragon Knight hadn't seen Vigtigny for a while, he was still the cousin of the two sisters. He knew his cousins quite well. If Vigtigny and Wendy really had a particularly close friend of the opposite sex, it was impossible that he hadn't heard of it. Just when the Earth Dragon Knight was about to ask for Rog's name, the city guards of Red Rock City finally arrived at the scene. Since there was a battle in the city, these city guards had to come to the scene no matter what. It didn't take long for over 100 Warner Protoss warriors to surround Rog's group and the Drake Knights. Then, a knight in black armor riding a warhorse came to the two of them. One only needed to look at the black armor on this knight to know that he was the commander of this city guard. Who made the first move? The Black Knight said after sizing up Rog and the young man. It's him. He attacked first. Without any hesitation, the Earth Dragon Knight pointed at Rog and said loudly. Then, he continued to say to the Black Knight, I'm Thor Vigtigny and Weigel from the Golden Thorns family. I'm the third successor of the LYSS family, the cousin of the female Thor. I'm the captain of the 12th Squad of the 3rd Night Division of the Blue Ocean Legion. I was ordered to return to the capital, but I bumped into this guy when I passed by Red Rock City. In the end, his magic beast started attacking my entourage. Well done. Thomas Lyce's self-introduction and distortion of black and white could be considered to be at the level of a master of perfection. Is what he said true? After listening to Thomas Lyss's story, the Black Knight looked down at Rog and asked. If you think it's true, then it's true. Rog replied with a calm face. Anyone with a normal brain and eyes would know what was going on with a single glance. Not to mention, there were so many bystanders present. Then you're admitting to Sir Lyss's words. The Black Knight continued with a serious tone. Sir Lyss? Rog thought that the Black Knight would be more tactful, but he didn't expect him to say it so openly. But this was normal. Compared to the noble Thomas Lyss, it was easier to manipulate him with an unknown background. Alright, I won't pretend anymore. I was the one who attacked first. I had lunch today and was in a good mood, so I let my magic beast attack a group of regular soldiers to liven things up. When he mentioned the regular army, Rog purposely emphasized his words. Since you've admitted to your atrocities, then follow me to the city guard station. Men! Take them away. The Black Knight on the warhorse immediately gave the order, but the city guards surrounding Rog and the others did not seem to have heard his order at all. They just stood there motionlessly. What are you waiting for? Do it. The Black Knight's tone became displeased as he shouted. But even so, the city guards under him didn't move. Don't waste your energy. Without my permission, they can't even move a finger. Rog looked up at the Black Knight and said slowly. Then, he continued to walk towards Thomas Lyss. Oh right, I advise you not to draw your sword. You can't bear the consequences. The Black Knight's right hand had just grabbed the hilt of his sword when Rog's voice sounded again. But obviously, this Black Knight was not the kind of person who would be obedient. He suddenly pulled out the sword from his waist and squeezed the horse's abdomen with his legs, driving the warhorse to attack Rog. Wind release, great sickle weasel. In an instant, a storm was born out of thin air, and the sickle weasel-like wind blades slashed through the Black Knight's body one after another. Boom! This sudden storm only lasted for a short 2 to 3 seconds before it came to an abrupt end. The Black Knight, who was riding a tall warhorse towards Rog, fell to the ground with the warhorse, and his right hand holding the sword rolled a few times on the ground. As the initiator of all this, Rog didn't even look at the Black Knight, whose right hand was cut off, and went directly to Thomas Lyss. Tell me, if I cripple you, will your family hunt me down regardless of the consequences? After hearing Rog's question, Thomas Lyss's attention was taken back from the Black Knight who had his hand cut off, and he looked at Rog in shock and confusion. Forget it, looking at your terrified look, you probably don't know the answer. After that, Rog raised his right hand and made it into the shape of a pistol. Water release, water iron cannon technique. Bang 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 bang, in an instant, Rog fired 4 chakra liquid bullets, piercing Thomas's armor and breaking his limbs. Ah! Thomas's screams echoed throughout the street again. After doing these things, Rog ignored the screaming Thomas and the Black Knight who had his hand cut off. He came to Hinata and Fenrir's side and used quantum teleportation to leave Red Rock City. When the beautiful aurora-like radiance completely disappeared, the city guards who had been immobilized by him regained the right to move. His journey to Red Rock City ended much earlier than he had expected. His originally good mood had been dampened quite a bit. Chapter 633. Warner Protoss's Royal City, the City of Honor. At this time, a week has passed since the episode in Red Rock City. During this week, Rog took Hinata and Fenrir to several well-known cities under the rule of Warner Protoss and had a pleasant physical and mental journey. And Warner Protoss's Royal City, the City of Honor, was the last stop in his plan. After breaking all 4 of Thomas's limbs, Logue received a bounty from the Lays family of the Golden Thorns as he wished. And he wasn't the only one who was wanted. Hinata and Fenrir were also on the list. Although the wanted notice of the 3 of them spread to all the cities under the rule of Warner Protoss, it didn't cause any trouble for his trip. Transformation Jutsu once again proved its value. Rog turned himself into the appearance of Jiraiya. Of course, it was the young Jiraiya, not the old lecherous and wretched guy. And Hinata, at his request, turned into the 5th Hokage, the legendary Sannin, the young Tsunade Haim. As for Fenrir, he used the orc transformation jutsu to turn into a tall red toad with black stripes. As for its own toad form, Fenrir appropriately expressed its own opinion. But because of the language barrier, his suggestion was temporarily put on hold. So, a different traveling group appeared in Warnerheim. A white-haired young man with a proud blonde girl sitting on the back of a huge red toad, traveling to various well-known cities in Warnerheim. At first, Rog was a little worried that the huge red toad Fenrir transformed into would be a bit too unusual. But it turned out that in a country with a long history and has opened the universal era, huge creatures are not unusual. Apart from having to pay a higher entrance fee for Fenrir, the red toad that Fenrir had transformed into didn't encounter any problems. Are you sure you don't want to see the 2 sisters Vigtigny and Weigelf? I heard that someone captured them more than once. Since Hinata heard the names of Vigtigny and Weigelf from Tomas, their names were mentioned almost every day by Hinata. Especially after knowing that Rog defeated and captured them twice, Hinata teased Rog from time to time. What's more, in a city she traveled to before, Hinata also bought several popular novels that had no factual basis at all. The story of the 4th Hokage and the twin girls Thor, too, becoming a ninja starts by defeating the female Thor, Ninja Don't Wave. Rog didn't expect that Warner Protoss's novels were no worse than Earth's. And unlike the novels on Earth, Warner Protoss's novels not only don't have the so-called 404, but the important plot also comes with its own illustrations. This is too much. Warner Protoss's Cultural Supervision Department's workload is seriously not enough. Since Hinata bought these novels, Rog found that he completely lost the right to explain. No matter what he said, Hinata would look at him with the kind of, "Oh, so that's how it is," look. After trying several times, he gave up the intention to explain. "Do whatever you want, I didn't do it anyway. I, Rog, am not afraid of a crooked shadow. Then, if you don't mind, I'll go to their house tonight." Since it's useless to explain, then he'll do the opposite. Rog doesn't believe that Hinata will really agree to let him stay at Vigtigny's house for the night. "Okay, if you want to go, then go." Looking at the young Tsunade Haim, Hinata gritted her teeth and said with a smile. Rog felt that he seemed to have gone a little too far on the edge of death. "Hey, look, there's a bald head outside." Rog, who has experienced many battles, of course, won't be so easily fooled and immediately changed the topic. After enjoying a luxurious lunch in this famous tavern in the capital, Rog and Hinata left the tavern and took Fenrir, who had nothing to do in the mount parking area. The waiter of the tavern certainly didn't forget to prepare food for Fenrir. It's just that what was placed in front of him were some toad meals that were in line with his current identity. After strolling around King City's commercial district for the whole afternoon, Roger and the others finally returned to the hotel. Even if he has the strength close to the Heavenly Father level, shopping is still a bit too painful for a man. Now, Roger felt that he was more tired than fighting with Thanos. And Hinata, who also shopped for an afternoon, was full of energy playing with her spoils today. Just when Rog was thinking about whether he should go to the hotel bar for a drink, a knock suddenly sounded on the door. After opening the door, he saw a hotel waiter in a fine uniform. "Mr. Jiraiya, hello, sorry to disturb you. There will be a small auction tonight at the auction house next door. If you don't mind, you can go and take a look with the madam. This is the invitation to the auction." After that, the waiter handed a black invitation and auction booklet to Rog with both hands. "Okay, I got it." After receiving the auction invitation and auction booklet from the waiter, Rog closed the door and opened the auction booklet to take a look. These auction items are good. Although he doesn't know the history of Warner Protoss, the introduction in the booklet still made him quite excited. "There's an auction tonight, and it looks good. Are you interested in taking a look?" After returning to the bedroom, Rog handed the invitation and booklet in his hand to Hinata, who was trying on clothes. "You decide, I'm fine with anything." Compared with the auction, Hinata was obviously more interested in the clothes and jewelry she just bought. "Then let's go and take a look. Anyway, I have nothing to do." Rog glanced at Hinata, who was trying on a black deep V-neck backless dress, and returned to the living room board. At night, Rog, who changed into the traditional Warnerheim clothes, and Hinata came to the auction house next to the hotel and walked into this particularly large and famous auction house. The name of the auction house is very ordinary, called the Lost Treasure House. However, behind this ordinary name, the auction house had a legendary history. It is said that this place once auctioned the weapon of a Warner Protoss god, as well as the divinity of a powerful god. Chapter 634. Whether it's the weapon of the God King or the divine spark, both are existences that can only be found by chance. In fact, so far, Rog only knows of two God King weapons. One is Odin's Gungnir, and the other is the storm battle axe that has not yet been created. Needless to say, the power of the Gungnir is undeniable. Odin can make a name for himself in the universe because of the Gungnir. As for the storm battle axe, although it hasn't been born yet, in other parallel universes, it blocked the attack of the All-Gem Infinity Gauntlet and cut off the head of Thanos. If it's divided by combat power, the God King's weapon can allow an existence at the level of a Heavenly Father to compete with a Heavenly Father. Of course, the premise of all this is that the God King's weapon is willing to recognize the existence of the user. If the God King's weapon represents part of the power of the God King, then the divine spark that has the potential to be promoted to a greater divine power represents the possibility of becoming a God King. No matter where this auction house called the Lost Treasure House got these two things, it can only prove one thing, that is, there is definitely a big person behind this auction house. If there is no accident, that person is either the current God King of Warner Protoss, Njord, or the mother of the two Vigtigny sisters, Gulwig. Apart from the two of them, Rog can't think of anyone else in Warner Protoss who can do this. This is why he decided to take Hinata to have a look after reading the introduction of this auction house. He wasn't here for the elven girl from Alfheim that was auctioned tonight. Definitely not. Under the guidance of the staff, Rog and Hinata came to a box on the second floor. Something is wrong. When the staff repeatedly explained that this is their seat tonight, Rog frowned. Although he has been spending money like a nouveau riche in the capital these 2 days, it's only limited to accompanying Hinata. After entering the capital, not only did he not show his strength in front of others, but he also deliberately hid his energy fluctuations and aura, pretending to be an ordinary Warner Protoss. What happened? After seeing the puzzled look on Rog's face, Hinata immediately asked. Something's wrong. For an auction of this scale, how could we, two outsiders without any foundation, be arranged in a VIP box of this level? Moreover, the admission card we used was a gift from the hotel. After hearing Rog's explanation, Hinata also noticed that something was wrong and was about to activate her Byakugan. Hinata was about to mobilize chakra when Rog stopped her. There's no need. Just wait patiently. The person who arranged this room for us will definitely show up tonight. After saying that, Rog pulled Hinata to the only 2 chairs in the box and sat down indifferently. Compared to the hall on the first floor, the rooms on the second floor not only had a wider view, but they also had a series of magic arrays, including soundproof magic arrays. These magic arrays allowed the rooms to be independent, comfortable, and free from external interference. When the magic clock in the hall turned to Hour of the Wolf, which represented 8:00 in the evening in Warnerheim, the auction began on time. A female auctioneer with an impressive figure in a long red dress walked up to the auction stage in a flirtatious manner. She used a seductive voice to make the opening remarks. Rog didn't care too much about what the female auctioneer said. His eyes were now fixed on the red dress of the auctioneer. This split is really bold. Whether it's the chest or the thigh, it can be said to be in the extreme position. I admire the designer of this dress. After the regular opening remarks, the auction entered the main topic. After receiving the brochure for tonight's auction, Roger already knew what items would be auctioned tonight. There were a total of 3 items that he was slightly interested in tonight. The first one was the elven girl from Alfheim. The second one was the sword in the stone. It was said that a certain Warner Protoss adventurer had brought it back from Earth. As for whether or not this sword in the stone was the one in his memories, Rog was unable to confirm. The third item was a silver surfboard. In the auction booklet, there was not much information about this silver surfboard. On a certain night, this silver surfboard fell from the sky and landed in Warnerheim. It was picked up by a farmer couple. Later, the auction house bought this silver surfboard from the farmer couple. According to the auction house's tests, this silver surfboard, which was as smooth as mercury, could give the user a certain degree of physique enhancement and the ability to fly. Other than that, there was no other information about it. When he saw this silver surfboard in the auction booklet, Rog thought of a person he had never seen before. The Silver Surfer, or rather, the Silver Shadow Man. In terms of appearance, this silver surfboard did look like the Silver Shadow Man surfboard. However, if this was really the Silver Shadow Man surfboard, then the ability of this surfboard was definitely not as simple as what was written in the auction booklet. Warner Protoss may not know who the Silver Shadow Man was, but Rog knew all about him. The Silver Shadow Man, whose real name was Norin Ride, was an astronomer on a planet outside the Milky Way galaxy. When this planet was chosen by the Great Planet Devourer, Norin Ride, who was not yet the Silver Shadow Man, used himself to serve the Planet Devourer. In exchange for finding other suitable planets, he begged the Planet Devourer to let his home planet go. The Planet Devourer accepted Norin's offer and gave him a powerful cosmic energy. Thus, the Silver Surfer was born. The moment he became the Silver Surfer, Norin's memories, good and evil, conscience and morals disappeared. When the Planet Devourer ordered him to find planets that could be eaten, the Silver Surfer first pointed to his home planet. However, the Planet Devourer still had some conscience. He did not devour the Silver Surfer's home planet. Instead, he said something that was not divine at all, but was very human. I made a promise with a respectable person that I can't eat that planet. During his time in the universe, Rog heard the name of the Planet Devourer. However, he did not know if it was because of good luck or bad luck, but he never met this famous Uncle Tun. While Rog was thinking about whether the silver surfboard auctioned tonight was the Silver Shadow Man surfboard, the elf girl from Alfheim was pushed onto the auction stage. Chapter 635. Even Rog, who was used to seeing beautiful women, couldn't help but feel a trace of amazement at the first sight of this elf girl. Light blonde hair that was slightly curled, a face that all male creatures would want to protect, and that delicate body that was just right to match her face perfectly. Is this the elf of Alfheim? Rog silently sighed in his heart. Not only did he feel this way, but the people sitting in the hall on the first floor also made a burst of exclamations. Without the auctioneer's introduction, the price of the elf girl's auction could rise at a terrifying speed. In less than a minute, the price of the elf girl's auction rose from 10,000 magic crystal coins to 120,000 magic crystal coins. Magic crystal coins are the highest level of currency in Warnerheim. The exchange price with ordinary gold is roughly between 1 to 10,000. Of course, this exchange price is not stable and will fluctuate freely around 10,000. Like now, when the war broke out on the front line, the exchange price is about 1 to 12,000. The reason why Rog was so clear was that he had just exchanged 2 days ago. However, he didn't exchange gold coins for magic crystal coins, but used Asgard's magic crystals for magic crystal coins. Before the start of the trip, he went to Asgard and took some magic crystals from Thor. He originally planned to take some of Warnerheim's magic crystal coins, but found that Asgard's golden palace didn't have many magic crystal coins, so he took the next best thing. These magic crystals weren't taken for free, mainly because he didn't want to take advantage of his friends. For these magic crystals, he asked Konoha Hidden Village to send a batch of vibranium that was enough for Asgard to use for 10 years. Now, in his summon scroll, there are about 1,300,000 magic crystal coins and a batch of Asgard's magic crystals that have not been exchanged yet. Fortunately, he exchanged the magic crystal coins in the capital city, otherwise, he may not be able to complete the exchange so smoothly. 150,000 magic crystals, 160,000. 180,000. The price of the elf girl's auction was still rising, but so far, the bidders were the guests on the first floor. Could it be that the guests on the second floor were all so noble? Rog curiously looked at the surrounding rooms. Due to the magic array, he could not see through the one-way magic barrier. He could only guess that there were guests in those rooms. Although he could still use chakra to sense if there was anyone in these rooms, he resisted the urge to do so in order to avoid unnecessary trouble. This was the capital city of the Warner Protoss. In this place, there was no lack of people who could sense chakra. The little girl down there is quite pitiful, don't you think? Rog glanced at Hinata and said casually. Little girl? She's an elf. She's at least a few times older than you, maybe even 10 times older. After traveling in Warnerheim for a while, Hinata was no longer an ordinary person who knew nothing about the 9 realms. Although she hadn't been to Asgard and Jotunheim, her understanding of the 9 realms was far beyond that of ordinary people on Earth. Things like age have to be combined with the lifespan of the species itself. Judging from the lifespan of the elves, the elf down there is indeed a little girl. At most, she has just reached adulthood. But looking at her scared look now, the possibility of her being underage is higher. Rog explained his point of view. Okay, don't say so much, you just want to participate in the auction? If you want to bid, then bid. Anyway, men are creatures who only think with their lower body. Hinata rolled her eyes at Rog. Since his partner said so, if Rog continued to be reserved, it would be a bit too pretentious. And strictly speaking, he was indeed interested in the elves of Alfheim. Among the 9 realms, except for the higher underworld that once imprisoned the goddess of death, only the elven kingdom Alfheim he hasn't been to. Therefore, it's normal for him to be interested in the elves. After all, curiosity is something that every living creature has. 300,000. After looking at the people bidding on the first floor, Rog directly raised the price to 300,000. Increasing the price by 10,000 to 20,000 was not in line with his style. Auctions were meant to be a bully. The magic array in the room transmitted his voice, causing the originally intense bidding war to pause for a moment. But soon, a competitor appeared on the first floor, 310,000. This was a man who was so fat that he needed to occupy the space of 2 people. With the physical fitness of Warner Protoss, being fat to this extent can be considered a talent. 400,000. Rog bid again. If he just raised the price to 300,000, it was just a bit overbearing. Therefore, there was only one meaning to his current bid. That is, this elf girl, he must have her. The fat competitor on the first floor looked up at the box where Rog was, he raised his right hand and put it down, and raised it again. After repeating several times, the fat competitor finally chose to give up. 400,000 magic crystal coins. This price was far beyond the normal price of an elf. However, this was also very normal. Not every elf could be like the elven girl on the stage, giving people a strong desire to protect her. In particular, the rugged collar on the elven girl's neck made the elven girl's delicate and pitiful appearance reach its limit, 400,000 going once. 400,000 going twice, 400,000, Just as the female auctioneer was about to drop the hammer, a female voice suddenly sounded from the box opposite Rog. 450,000 magic crystal coins. A woman? That's not right. It's just an elf girl. Why is a woman like you joining in the fun? Just as Rog was about to continue bidding, he suddenly stopped. Something's wrong. Something's really wrong. Although the female voice just now was hidden by the magic formation, Rog still felt that he had heard this voice somewhere before. Victigny, or Weigelf. The only women he knew of from Warner Protoss were the two sisters. Could it be the two sisters? After thinking for a while, he finally made the decision to make a bid. However, before bidding, he adjusted his voice using a sound transmission magic array. 500,000. After reporting his new price, he turned off the sound transmission magic array. As long as the other party continued to raise the price, no matter how much, he would give up. The elf girl on the auction stage was indeed very attractive, but it wasn't enough to make him risk everything to bid for her. He didn't forget that there were still the sword in the stone and the silver surfboard. Chapter 636. 500,000 going once. 500,000 going twice. The beautiful auctioneer on stage began the final countdown, while Rog calmly waited for the other party to raise the price. 500,000. At this point, the auctioneer glanced at the box on the second floor that had just raised the price. However, the box opposite Rog did not have any reaction. Going thrice, sold. Clap. The auction mallet fell, and the elven girl's auction officially ended. Damn. The other party did not play by the rules. Rog did not expect that in the end, he would still win the elven girl and spend an extra 100,000 magic crystal coins. Well done. Although the price had been raised, he did not take it to heart. Isn't it just 500,000 magic crystal coins? I don't care. In his psychic scroll, there were 1,300,000 magic crystal coins. However, this was not all of his assets. He did not exchange all of his Asgard magic crystals for magic crystal coins. He only exchanged a third of it. Therefore, his total assets now were about 5 million magic crystal coins. Although 500,000 for an elven girl was a little expensive, it was not to the extent that it made his heart ache. Moreover, other than these magic crystal coins and magic crystals, he had an even more valuable item. Divinity. To be precise, a third of the divinity. The Black Panther god Bastet's divinity was divided into 3 fragments, and he had 2. One of them was fed to Fenrir, while the other was kept in his psychic scroll. Although he did not have a special understanding of the god system that collected the power of faith, he speculated that the Black Panther god Bastet's divinity potential was between weak and intermediate divine power. Weak, intermediate, strong, supreme, this was the classification of divine power used by most god systems. Among them, strong divine power was roughly equivalent to the king of gods, while supreme divine power was equivalent to the creator gods. Although the Black Panther god Bastet had died under the joint attack of him and Professor Doom, the Black Panther god was still a god that had protected Wakanda for thousands of years. It was not particularly strange for his divinity to be at the level of weak or intermediate divine power. Not long after, the elven girl with a red necklace around her neck was sent to the room Rog was in. He took out 5 magic crystal cards that each represented 100,000 magic crystal coins and handed them to the smiling waiter. He then took the chain from the waiter's hand. Bang! After transferring the chakra to the collar through the chain, he directly shattered the vile collar. Don't talk. Go to the side. I'll ask you if I have any questions. Glancing at the elven girl who was still in a state of shock, Rog once again set his gaze on the auction stage. Legendary magic sword, Hill Lord's Heart, Medusa's Eye, Star Adamantine. One by one, the items were put up for auction, and then one by one, they were taken away. Rog wasn't particularly interested in weapons, equipment, or magic materials. He didn't lack weapons now, and he wasn't interested in doing magic research, so these auction items didn't have any attraction to him. After waiting patiently for a while, the second item that he was interested in finally appeared. The sword in the stone. It was an ordinary-looking one-handed sword. He didn't know if the auction house was just playing with the atmosphere or if they really got the sword and the stone together. The sword and the stone that appeared on the auction stage was inserted into a huge stone. Was this thing really the sword in the stone? Rog didn't know much about the sword in the stone. He only vaguely remembered that the sword in the stone was a legendary sword from the time of King Arthur. It was said that the person who pulled out the sword in the stone would have the strength of a multiverse. In the parallel universe, the sword in the stone had two owners. One was Iron Man Tawny, and the other was Captain Britain. After thinking for a few seconds, he used Chakra's perception and began to sense the sword in the stone on the auction stage in detail. Although this action might cause the auction house to be dissatisfied, he didn't mind taking a small risk to determine whether the sword in the stone was the legendary treasure that had the strength of a multiverse in his memory. As long as Njord and Gulwig didn't join forces, he didn't fear anyone from the Warner Protoss. There were no energy fluctuations. After carefully sensing it inside and out, he didn't find any energy in the sword in the stone. Fake, this is definitely a fake. After confirming that there was no energy in the so-called sword in the stone, he immediately lost all interest. However, it was normal when he thought about it. If this was really the sword in the stone that had the strength of a multiverse, it wouldn't have appeared in the auction house. Although the people from Warner Protoss didn't know about other parallel universes like him, they definitely wouldn't be so stupid. In the end, the sword in the stone was bought by the mysterious guest in the box opposite Rog at the low price of 10,000 magic crystal coins. Sister, I told you, he won't be fooled so easily. Don't forget, he's an Earthling. He knows more about the sword in the stone than you and I do. The one who spoke was none other than Weigelf, one of the twins, Thor. It doesn't matter if he wasn't fooled. Anyway, he has already paid an extra 100,000 magic crystal coins. It doesn't matter if the sword in the stone can't fool him. Victigny said indifferently, her light green eyes looking at the box where Rog was. Although Rog entered the King's City as a young Jiraiya, on the first day he entered the King's City, his traces were discovered by the sisters Victigny. To be precise, it was their mother, Gulwig, who noticed his arrival. Gulwig told the two of them, and then Weigelf, with her amazing intuition, made the final confirmation. Time passed little by little, and finally, the silver surfboard suspected to be the Silver Shadowman was carried to the auction stage. When the mercury-like silver surfboard floated next to the auctioneer, Rog once again used chakra perception. Unlike the sword in the stone, this time, he perceived a terrifying energy in the silver surfboard. After perceiving this strange but powerful energy, he couldn't help but frown. This thing can't be real, can it? He was no stranger to the Silver Shadowman, but because he had never seen the Silver Shadowman, he couldn't be sure whether this energy was the cosmic energy given to the Silver Shadowman by the planet Devourer. However, judging from the nature of the energy, this possibility was very high. The energy in the universe is very different from the energy in the planet. As long as you have a little perception, you can distinguish the difference between the two. In short, this is similar to the difference between water attribute energy and fire attribute energy. Although they both originate from the same source, their manifestations are completely different. Chapter 637. The nature of the energy was in line with the characteristics of cosmic energy, and the shape was also similar to Silver Shadowman's surfboard. If he was not mistaken, this thing should be Silver Shadowman's surfboard. Although he did not know why this surfboard, which was inseparable from Silver Shadowman, appeared in Warnerheim, and it fell from the sky, this did not affect Rog's intention to buy it. Even if there was a mistake, this was still a very memorable souvenir. The starting price of this silver surfboard was also 10,000 magic crystal coins. However, because the auction house itself did not know the origin of this surfboard, the guests present did not seem particularly interested. This was normal. After all, Warnerheim was a country with a long history of civilization. This kind of item with the ability to fly and can bring a certain degree of physical enhancement to the user. Although it was not common in Warnerheim, it was definitely not rare. If this thing did not fall from the sky and had some unknown mysteries, this surfboard would not even have the chance to be on the auction stage. In fact, when the auction house bought this surfboard, it only cost a few hundred magic crystal coins. After waiting for dozens of seconds, there was still no guest bidding. In order to avoid a failed bid, Rog took the initiative to bid 15,000. This was a reasonable bid, there was nothing strange about it. 20,000. Sure enough, when Rog began to bid, the box that bid with him also began to bid. While using Chakra's perception to perceive the sword in the stone and the surfboard, he also perceived the situation in the opposite box, wanting to see who was sitting in the opposite box. However, it was a pity that his perception was directly blocked. What blocked his perception was not the magic array of the auction house, but the people sitting inside. Since the other party took the initiative to block his perception, Rog did not continue to make a fool of himself and directly ended his perception. So until now, he did not know that the people sitting in the opposite box were Victigny and her sister. 25,000. He raised the price again. 30,000, 35,000. It didn't take long for the price of the surfboard to reach 200,000 magic crystal coins. From these few price increases, Rog was 100% sure that the person on the other side was going against him. 300,000. He directly raised the price to 100,000. Don't you want to play? I'll play with you. Rog, who still had 4,500,000 magic crystal coins, wasn't worried at all that he would fail. 350,000. Sure enough, the other party increased the price, and the amount of increase was always half of his. 500,000. This was the second time he had bid 500,000 yuan tonight. If he had spent 500,000 magic crystal coins on the elven maiden, everyone present would only think of him as a lecherous man. Then, when he called out this price again, his label in the hearts of others became lecherous idiot. Spending 500,000 magic crystal coins on a strange-looking surfboard that didn't have any rare abilities was no longer a question of curiosity, but a blatant ignorance. Of course, this was only the evaluation of Rog by the guests. He would never think of himself as an ignorant lecherous idiot. Although he didn't know why the silver Shadowman surfboard fell in Warnerheim, and why it only showed such an ordinary ability, one thing he could be sure of was that the surfboard was still in a normal state. It wasn't sealed, and there were no traces of damage on the inside. In that case, this surfboard was definitely worth 500,000 magic crystal coins. As for why the auction house didn't notice this, he didn't know, nor was he interested in knowing. Perhaps in the eyes of the auction house, this was just a strange prop with a lot of energy. It was just like the magic props made by alchemists and mages, which had a lot of energy but didn't have much use. Sister, are you going to continue to raise the price? This price is already seriously high, and he may give up at any time. Although she was the famous twin Thor in Warnerheim, and the daughter of the supreme goddess Gerwig, 500,000 magic crystal coins was not a small amount for them. It's not that they can't afford 500,000 magic crystal coins, but it's still a bit wasteful to spend 500,000 magic crystal coins on an unknown surfboard. One more time, if he wants it, then give it to him. Victigny said indifferently. Then, she gave her latest offer, 550,000, 600,000. Since this price has been called, Rog won't give up this surfboard no matter what. Just when he thought that he would raise the price at least a few more times, the opposite box directly gave up bidding. In the end, this surfboard suspected to be the Silver Shadowman fell into the hands of Rog. After handing 6 magic crystal cards with a limit of 100,000 to the auction house attendant, he took the silver surfboard. He didn't intend to test the surfboard in the auction house. He threw the surfboard into the psychic scroll, then left the auction house with Hinata. As for the elf girl who hadn't spoken so far, she followed behind them without saying a word. Hotel suite. What's your name? Looking at the elf girl in front of him who wanted to eat the fruit on the table but didn't dare to speak, Rog took the initiative to ask. Rosie. Forley Rosie, good name. Although Rog doesn't know much about the elf culture of Alfheim, from the perspective of an earthling, this name is quite good. At least it matches Rosie's temperament and appearance. How did you get caught? Rog continued to ask. Space rift. When I was wandering in the forest of my family territory, I fell into a space rift, and then, Speaking of this, Rosie looked like she was about to cry. For some reason, looking at Rosie's pitiful appearance, Rog suddenly had the urge to pinch her face and make her cry. It's like seeing a baby with a round face and having the urge to make it cry. No, I can't be so evil. This girl looked like she was underage. Okay, I got it. From today on, you are this lady's servant, understand? After saying that, Rog pointed to Hinata, who was sitting next to him, and got a supercilious look from her. Understood. I will be a reliable servant. Rosie said solemnly, but judging from her appearance, she shouldn't have any experience in this area. If he's not mistaken, Rosie's background shouldn't be very ordinary, maybe she's an elf noble. But this doesn't matter. Since he bought her from the auction house, she is his personal property. After sending Hinata and Rosie away, Kuroto summoned the surfboard from the summon scroll. Chapter 638. The silver surfboard floated quietly in front of Rog, maintaining a distance of about 10 centimeters from the ground. Looking at the mercury-like surfboard, Rog did not hesitate and stood on it. The first feeling when he stepped on the surfboard was like stepping into a shallow puddle. Rog could clearly feel the slight fluctuations on the surface of the surfboard, and he could also feel the sturdiness under his feet. Just when he planned to control chakra to flow into the surfboard, the mercury-like liquid on the surface of the surfboard seemed to have a life of its own as it spread up his feet. Just when the mercury-like liquid was about to reach his instep, Rog immediately used chakra to stop the spread of the silver liquid. He had no interest in becoming a silver person like Silver Shadowman. For someone like him who was obsessed with cleanliness, letting the silver liquid spread to his body was no different from jumping into the disgusting river of Ganges that was full of strange things. This kind of thing, forget about doing it, just thinking about it would give him goosebumps. However, what he didn't expect was that when he used chakra to stop the silver liquid from spreading, the silver liquid actually showed a clear resistance and spread up in a more aggressive way. Interesting. The silver liquid showed its dominance, but Rog was even more domineering than it. In the beginning, he planned to try to tame the surfboard in a gentler way. But now, he changed his mind. With a thought, the vast ocean-like chakra in his body instantly became extremely active. In less than a second, the silver liquid was completely suppressed and turned from its initial liquid state to a solid state. When the surfboard under his feet no longer had the mercury-like flowing posture, he let his consciousness follow chakra into the surfboard. In Rog's perception, the energy in the surfboard was like a small universe, magnificent and boundless. After perceiving this scene, he was 100% sure that the surfboard under his feet was Silver Shadowman's surfboard. This kind of high-level energy that is completely in line with the nature of cosmic energy is definitely not something that anyone can control. To be precise, it is not something that can be mastered by existences below the Heavenly Father level. In terms of energy level, this cosmic energy is only slightly inferior to the energy of Infinity Stone. After confirming this, it was not difficult to judge the authenticity of this surfboard. Only the planet Devourer or other existences of the same level can give such high-level cosmic energy to others. So the question is, why did the surfboard that was inseparable from Silver Shadowman fall in Warnerheim? It's impossible that the planet Devourer targeted Warnerheim and then sent Silver Shadowman to Warnerheim. More importantly, the silver surfboard appeared in Vanaheim, so where did the Silver Shadowman go? After thinking for a few seconds, Rog gave up on thinking. Since he couldn't figure it out, he wouldn't think about it anymore. There was no need to waste his brain cells on this kind of thing. And from the moment he bought this surfboard at the auction house, he had already regarded the surfboard as his own personal property. Even if Silver Shadowman appeared in front of him now, he would not return the surfboard to Silver Shadowman. Unless Silver Shadowman can give him something more valuable in exchange. Although he just squandered magic crystals at the auction house, these magic crystals were all exchanged with vibranium. Just when he was considering whether to step on the surfboard and go out to test it, there was a knock on the door. The rapid knocking on the door made Rog frown with dissatisfaction. Before he opened the door, there was an unfriendly voice outside the door. "City guard, check the room." After hearing this sentence, Rog's face became completely gloomy. Checking the room is normal, and the police on Earth do this kind of thing a lot. But the problem is, when have you seen the police go to the presidential suite of a 5-star hotel to check the room? Although the hotel Rog is living in is not the best hotel in the capital, it is still one of the top high-end hotels in the capital. Take the suite he is living in now, for example, the cost of 1,000 magic crystal coins a day. After the person at the door shouted, "City guard, check the room," he was basically sure that someone was deliberately looking for trouble. So, he gave up the idea of opening the door and sat on the sofa in the living room with a calm face. Although there is no so-called no-retreat law or castle law in Warnerheim, as long as the guy outside the door breaks in, Rog dares to kill them on the spot. He is not interested in knowing who sent the guy outside the door and what his purpose is. Even if the person outside the door is really the city guard of the capital, he can just leave the capital with Hinata and Rosie. He may not be able to win against Njord and Gulwig, but as long as he wants to leave, no one in Warnerheim can stop him. Including the goddess of death, who is now in Warnerheim, but belongs to the invaders. The knocking on the door continued, and Rosie, who has been changed by Hinata, came out of the bedroom timidly. She looked at Rog sitting on the sofa with a curious face, then turned to look in the direction of the door of the suite. Then, without saying a word, she trotted back to the bedroom. 10 seconds later, the hurried knocking on the door stopped, and Rog was ready to release Shinra Tensei at any time. Although his eyes now look like a pair of ordinary black eyes, this is only the effect of the transformation technique. His right eye is always the lavender Rinnegan. However, things didn't go as he imagined. After the knocking stopped, the person outside the door did not choose to directly break in, but inserted the key into the keyhole. But even so, Rog didn't stop the Shinra Tensei at any time. Whether it's breaking the door or opening the door, he intends to teach the uninvited guest outside the door an unforgettable lesson. Creak. The closed door of the room was pushed open. Shinra Tensei, just at the moment when Shinra Tensei was about to be released, he took the initiative to stop the flow of chakra. How could it be her? No, it should be, how could it be them? The people who opened the door were none other than Vigtigny and Weigelf in pale golden armor. Behind them was a small group of city guard soldiers. This is a bit awkward, others may not be able to see through his disguise, but Weigelf can definitely see through it. Her astonishing intuition, which could be said to be able to read minds, was simply the natural enemy of the transformation technique. Long time no see. Vigtigny took the initiative to say hello, then sat on the sofa opposite Rog like a tomboy. Chapter 639. Long time no see. Looking at the impolite Vigtigny, Rog replied silently. Then, he continued, I haven't seen you for a while, and your strength has improved again. Without actively using chakra perception, he didn't notice that it was actually Vigtigny and Weigelf outside the door. In the past, this was something that was impossible to happen. Oh, I've been defeated by you twice, so I have to work hard. Vergatini raised her head and said. Obviously, she was very satisfied with the improvement of her strength. When Weigelf also sat on the sofa opposite Rog, the city guards who came with them silently closed the door. Boom! When the door was closed, Rog took the initiative to lift the effect of the transformation technique. In front of Vigtigny and her sister, it doesn't make any sense to continue the transformation technique. As soon as the white smoke of the transformation technique dissipated, Vigtigny asked, What happened to your eyes? Her memory of Rog is still the time when Rog had 3 Tomo Sharingan. Just like you, it's a change brought about by the improvement of my strength. As long as one wasn't blind, one could see that Rog's eyes were not symmetrical at all. Just when Vigtigny was about to say something, Hinata came out of the bedroom with Luo Qi. Hinata first looked at Vigdini and Roguelike with a puzzled look, then looked at Rog who had lifted his transformation jutsu. Without any hesitation, Hinata also lifted the transformation jutsu's effect and changed back to her original appearance. Seeing Hinata use the same ability as Rog, Vigtigny frowned. After changing from a blonde with a proud figure to a relatively less fierce girl, Hinata showed a gentle smile and then sat directly on the right side of Rog. Dear, who are these 2 sisters? Why have I never seen you mention them? Hinata, you've changed. Listening to Hinata using a green tea tone that he had never used before, Roger unconsciously swallowed his saliva. This is Vigtigny, and this is Weigelf. They are the famous twins of Warner Protoss, Thor. Rog pointed to Vigtigny. Just when he was about to introduce Hinata to Vigtigny and her sister, Hinata gently held his right hand, still maintaining the seemingly harmless smile on her face. This is my girlfriend, Hinata. After struggling for a few seconds between the terms girlfriend, partner, wife, colleague, and business partner, Rog finally chose a relatively safe relationship. Oh. So she's just a girlfriend. I thought Roger was already married. Vigtigny glanced at Hinata and said in a slightly exaggerated tone. This development isn't very good. Looking at the current environment, Rog's mind appeared in Shiraba's mind. No, I can't let things continue like this. Just when he was about to directly change the topic, Hinata spoke. Rog, you've been in the capital for so long, but you didn't introduce your sister to me. You made me think that elder sister was really like what was written in those novels. After saying that, Hinata deliberately raised her right hand and shyly hammered Rog's shoulder. Hiss, there's no need to use gentle fist. Hinata's gentle fist, chakra, entered Rog's shoulder and pierced several chakra points on his shoulder and right arm like red-hot iron needles. It's all my fault, Rog said with a smile while enduring the pain. Rog can control his expression very well, but Vigtigny and Hinata don't have his composure. Especially after Hinata deliberately mentioned the novels, Vigtigny and Hinata's faces instantly turned red. As the heroines in the novels, how can they not know how those novels are written? Although they are female Thor, they are the most powerful group of women in the Warner Protoss. But even so, they have no way to completely eliminate the circulation of those damn novels. This was just like what a great person from China had said. The people love to read and see, but you don't like it. Who do you think you are? Although there are many gods in Warnerheim, there is number 404 god. And even if there is 404 god, it can't stop the people from liking it. I didn't expect sister to be so sharp-tongued at such a young age. Vigtigny, who acted like a tough woman as soon as she entered the door, no longer hid her momentum at this time. In other words, she took the initiative to vent her amazing oppressive power. In front of Rog, Vigtigny was defeated. But it can't be denied that Vigtigny is an existence who has awakened her divine power. She is the female Thor in Warnerheim and a commander in the army. Her oppressive power, not to mention ordinary people, even many senior generals in the Warner Protoss can't stand it. Sister is old, it's inevitable that she will be more irritable. Hinata didn't take Vigtigny's oppressive power to heart and also broke out her own momentum. Although she hasn't experienced many battles, don't forget that her ninjutsu talent is above Rog. If you want to use momentum to oppress her, not to mention Vigtigny, even Rog can't do it. Suddenly, the living room of the suite became a battlefield for Vigtigny and Hinata. That. Do you want to persuade your sister? Rog doesn't dare to stop Hinata now. Otherwise, Hinata won't let him have an easy time tonight. So, he can only use magic to whisper to remind Weigelf, who is also blushing. Humph. Weigelf snorted with a nasal sound, then released her own momentum and joined Vigtigny's side. What the hell? It's endless. Just when Vigtigny joined forces to release their momentum and tried to bully Hinata, Rog didn't continue to stand by and released his own momentum without reservation. Buzz. At the moment when Rog fully released his momentum, with the hotel as the center, all creatures within a few kilometers felt a palpitation as if they were being stared at by an ancient beast. This kind of palpitation as if facing a natural enemy made most people tremble slightly involuntarily. Except for those who have enough strength, most people felt an inexplicable pressure of death. When it comes to momentum, Rog really has never been afraid of anyone. From the time he only knew the Flying Thunder God until now, he had seen all kinds of enemies. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't fight enemies who were far weaker than him, he would have completed the achievement of killing millions of people by now. When Rog's momentum also joined in, Vigtigny decisively took back their momentum and ended this meaningless competition. Chapter 640. When both Vigtigny and Weigelf retracted their momentum, Rog and Hinata also did the same. The atmosphere in the room finally returned to normal. Plop. The boring momentum competition was over, but things didn't end there. As the only normal person in the room, Rosie fell back uncontrollably after they finished their momentum competition, and her face showed uncontrollable fear. He actually forgot about this little girl. It wasn't until now that Rog remembered that he just bought an elf girl with little fighting power. Looking at the shivering Rosie, Rog cast a mind-calming spell on her, freeing the poor little girl from the fear that came from her life instincts. After calming down, Luo Qi slowly stood up and said in a timid voice. However, as soon as she opened her mouth, Victigny interrupted her. Victigny stood up, stretched out her right hand, pointed at Hinata, who was trying to play the role of a green tea, and said fiercely, "I want to duel with you." What? Hearing Victigny's sudden duel proposal, both Rog and Hinata were taken aback. Not only did they not keep up with Victigny's train of thought, but even Weigelf showed a puzzled look. What's this? Is she going against Hinata? Just when Rog was about to stop Victigny, Hinata, who had been maintaining her green tea smile, stood up and said in an unquestionable tone, "I accept your duel." After seeing Hinata's rare serious look, Rog knew that there was no way to be kind tonight. Although Hinata usually has a gentle and lovely appearance, like a caring big sister next door, only Rog, who has been in contact with Hinata for a long time, knows how decisive she can be when she's serious. Let's put it this way, when Hinata says that he can't rest, even as the fourth Hokage, Rog doesn't dare to disobey her order and secretly rest. Good. Don't cry later, don't blame big sister for being too heavy-handed. Victigny didn't expect that Hinata would actually accept her duel proposal, and a look of confidence appeared on her face. Looking at Victigny and Hinata who were completely at each other's throats, Rog shook his head helplessly. A duel is a duel, the sooner it's over, the sooner it's over. Otherwise, there would be no end to this matter. Although it's late at night, under the arrangement of Victigny, they successfully got the permission to use of the Colosseum. Roger did not follow the three of them into the arena that looked similar to the Colosseum in ancient Rome. He said slowly, "I'll wait for you outside. Don't worry, I won't bully your girlfriend." Victigny raised her eyebrows and said to Roger, "I'll be back soon," Hinata said with a smile. When the three of them disappeared from the entrance of the arena, Roger jumped on Fenrir's back. Gua gua, because of the effect of the transformation technique, Fenrir's wolf howl turned into a toad's cry. However, whether it was a wolf howl or a toad, Rog couldn't understand it. Lying on the back of Fenrir, who had transformed into a red toad, Rog looked up at the moon in the night sky, which was different from the one on Earth. The moon on Earth is bright white. The moon in Warnerheim is the so-called blood moon, and the moonlight will constantly change between crimson and blood red with the change of date. Not long after, there was a fierce thunder sound in the Colosseum. Just by listening to the sound, Rog couldn't tell whether it was Victigny's attack or Hinata's attack. Although Victigny awakened the lightning god's power, Hinata is also good at lightning release. To some extent, Hinata is like a weakened version of Rog. Except for the lack of Sharingan, Mokuton, Rinnegan, and other Kekkei Genkai, Hinata is not much different from Rog. In terms of the mastery and development of ninjutsu, Hinata is even stronger than Rog. The battle in the Colosseum didn't last long. After about 10 minutes, the three reappeared in front of Rog. Looking at Hinata and Victigny, who didn't have any injuries, Rog didn't ask about the result of the duel. He directly said goodbye to the two sisters and returned to the tavern with Hinata and Fenrir. Sitting on Fenrir's back, Hinata leaned her head on Rog's shoulder and said in a normal tone, "Aren't you curious about the result of our duel?" "There's nothing to be curious about. When you accepted the duel, I knew that the winner would be you." "Why?" "She's the famous female Thor, okay? Others don't know you, but don't I know you? She's indeed a female Thor, but you're also a ninja. You don't do things that you're not sure about. Moreover, you're someone who was personally guided by me. I know very well what kind of strength you have." Rog hugged Hinata's slender waist and said slowly, "Victigny's strength is indeed good, but unfortunately, her opponent is Hinata, so there's no need to think about the final result. Actually, she's also quite good, but a little silly. After hearing Hinata's description of silly, Rog smiled helplessly. Silly is not a good word, but Rog knows Hinata very well. From Hinata's point of view, this is a pretty good evaluation. At least it proves that Hinata recognizes Vigtigny. Yes, it's recognition. If it's not someone recognized by Hinata, she won't give such a silly evaluation, and she won't even make an evaluation. She will only silently label her as a waste or garbage in her heart. After the episode of Vigtigny, the night finally passed. Because of the appearance of Vigtigny and her sister, Rog also temporarily dispelled the idea of testing the silver surfboard and decided to return to Konoha and slowly study this surfboard. The next morning, when Rog and Hinata had just tasted the specialty breakfast of Warnerheim, Vigtigny appeared in front of them again. My mother wants to see you. No problem. Vigtigny's mother, Gerwig, is not an ordinary person. In the eyes of the outside world, Gerwig is the most powerful goddess in Warnerheim, second only to the existence of the god King Njord. Of course, this is only the view of ordinary people. Whether it's Njord or Gerwig, neither has admitted this. However, Rog has a completely different view. Chapter 641. Compared to the divine King Njord, Gerwig did not have many illustrious achievements, and she rarely appeared in the outside world. But it would be too arbitrary to conclude that she was weaker than Njord based on this alone. The first time he came to Warnerheim, Rog had fought with Njord. At that time, he had just mastered Sage Mode and was far inferior to now. But in that fight, he did not feel a huge gap in strength from Njord that he could not resist. How should he put it? At that time, it was indeed unlikely that he could defeat Njord, but he could also guarantee that he had more than a 70% chance of leaving alive, and not being seriously injured. As the divine king of Warnerheim, Njord could not be said to be weak. But compared to an existence like Odin, Njord, a divine father-level existence, seemed a little unworthy of the name. In fact, until now, Rog still doubted whether Njord had the strength of a divine father. In any case, from that fight, he did not feel that Njord was a divine father. Especially after he had the strength of a divine father, his doubts grew stronger and stronger. Combining his own actual situation and the situation of the last fight, he speculated that Njord should be about the same as himself, at the peak of the divine father level, only half a step away from the divine father level. The peak of the divine father level seemed to be only half a step away from the divine father level, but in fact, the two were completely different existences. So the question was, if Njord did not have the strength of a divine father, how did Warnerheim resist Odin's army back then? Don't say that Odin deliberately let Warnerheim go, allowing Warnerheim to maintain its independence. Odin was not the benevolent divine king that he was later when he fought in the Nine Lands. If he was not sure that he could not completely conquer Warnerheim, Odin would never have made the decision to only station troops in Warnerheim without interfering in the specific internal affairs of Warnerheim. Therefore, if Rog guessed correctly, the reason why Odin made this concession was because of Gulwig. He even had a very gossipy idea. Did something happen between Odin and Gulwig? Let's put it this way, Odin's biological son, Thor, awakened the divine power of thunder, and Gulwig's twin daughters also awakened the divine power of thunder. What was even stranger was that he had never heard of Gulwig's husband. Even the nobles in the Warner Protoss didn't know about it, let alone him. Therefore, he couldn't be blamed for having some inappropriate associations. Speaking of Gulwig's strength, judging from the awakened divine power of Vigtigny and her current strength, Gulwig's strength is definitely not too weak, and may even be stronger than Njord. At least from the perspective of the strength of her descendants, that's the case. The three Storm brothers are direct descendants of Njord, but in terms of strength, they are completely inferior to Vigtigny and her sister. Unlike ordinary creatures, the strength of the gods themselves directly determines the potential of their descendants. So from this point of view, Gulwig's strength may be above Njord. It's even possible that Gulwig is the divine father that allowed Warnerheim to maintain its independence. Of course, all of this is just Rog's guess. Whether Gulwig is a divine father or not, he can only confirm it after meeting her. Under the leadership of Vigtigny, Rog boarded the carriage to Gulwig's palace. He didn't bring Hinata and Fenrir. In fact, Gulwig only invited him alone. On the way to the palace, Victigny maintained a rare state of silence. He did not ask Log any questions, nor did he explain anything to him. In this silent atmosphere, the carriage slowly drove into Gulwig's palace. Victigny didn't take Rog to see Gulwig, but left the job of guiding him to the palace maids. The moment he entered Gulwig's palace, Rog realized what is called extravagance. He can be regarded as a person who has seen big scenes, but after seeing Gulwig's palace, he couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Gulwig's palace is not decorated magnificently, but Rog can see that from the beginning of the palace gate, the interior of the palace is all used with precious materials in Warnerheim. Even the load-bearing pillars of the palace are enchanted materials that are worth more than gold. Simply put, Gulwig's palace was like a building built with countless magic arrays. If he is not mistaken, even the floor of the palace is enchanted with several magic. Dustless technique, cleaning technique, durability improvement. After sitting in this not particularly large main hall and waiting for more than 10 minutes, Rog finally saw the most famous and powerful goddess in Warnerheim, Gulwig. "Greetings, Your Royal Highness." Rog didn't salute, but nodded slightly. It's their business if others want to salute Gulwig anyway, he doesn't have such a habit. Not to mention Gulwig, even when he saw Ancient One, he just nodded his head in greeting. "You are the fourth Hokage, right? You are really talented." Gulwig, wearing a white dress and a few simple jewelry, looked at him seriously, and then sat on the main seat. "Your Royal Highness is overpraising me." Since Gulwig entered the main hall of the cave, he has begun to perceive Gulwig's strength. Although he was not presumptuous enough to directly use chakra perception to perceive seriously, he tried his best to perceive the aura that Gulwig might leak out. But soon, he found out that he was thinking too much. Without using chakra perception, he couldn't feel any energy fluctuations from Gulwig's body. If you only observe with your eyes, Gulwig gives people the feeling that she is a well-maintained noble woman, the kind that has no strength to truss a chicken. If your strength is overpraising, then the young people in Warnerheim are not even qualified. Gulwig said with an impeccable smile and tone. "Well, I don't know what your Royal Highness is looking for me today." Rog directly changed the question, trying to take back the initiative of the exchange. But it was apparent that Gulwig didn't intend to let him succeed so easily. She said something that he didn't expect. "What do you think of Victigny and Weigelf? If you had to choose one of them to be your wife, who would you choose?" Did I just miss any information? How did it suddenly become this topic? That, they are both very good. Figure, appearance, strength, background, are impeccable. Chapter 642. It's just that I already have a girlfriend, so, Rog thought for a moment and ultimately refused to make a choice. This wasn't because he was worried about offending Victigny or Weigelf, but because he simply couldn't understand what Gulwig was planning to do. Gulwig was the strongest goddess among the Warner Protoss, and possibly even the most powerful god. In front of such an existence, any decision had to be made with caution. Moreover, it was impossible for someone of Gulwig's strength and status to urge him to get married. There's a conspiracy. There's definitely a conspiracy. You're dishonest. You say you have a girlfriend, but that might not be what you think in your heart, right? Gulwig looked at Rog with a smile and continued in an impeccable manner. Maybe you don't know me well. I'm a devoted man." Ever since Gulwig appeared, Rog realized that he couldn't control the conversation at all. "I'm still very clear about a man's thoughts. Don't try to lie in front of a woman who's at least 100 times older than you. It won't work," Gulwig said with a smile. Then, just as Rog was about to explain something, she continued, "Let's be frank. If Victigny and Weigelf were to marry you at the same time, would you be willing? As long as you're willing, I can arrange a wedding for you immediately." Damn. What is this girl trying to do? Rog had to admit that he couldn't keep up with Gulwig's train of thought. Or rather, he couldn't accept Gulwig's straightforward way of talking. Rog shook his head helplessly at the sight of Gulwig, who was a perfect match for the word goddess in terms of looks, figure, and status. "Your Highness, just say it. What are you planning to do?" Are you trying to rope me in, make me work for you, or just help you complete something? But to be honest, I look down on you for using your own daughter as a bargaining chip. Rog's expression became serious. You're the only one in Warnerheim who dares to talk to me like this. With that, Gulwig raised her right hand, and a light blue barrier was instantly formed, enveloping the entire hall. Your Highness, aren't you looking down on me a little too much if you think you can trap me with a barrier of this level? After casually sensing the mana fluctuations of the barrier, Rog knew that this barrier wouldn't be able to trap him. He might not be able to break it in 1 or 2 seconds, but it would take him at most 5 or 10 seconds. This barrier isn't used to trap you. It's only used to prevent others from hearing what we're about to say. Gulweg explained. Then, she released her aura and energy waves. The moment Gulweg released her aura, Rog frowned slightly. Heavenly Father tier. Gulweg was actually a Heavenly Father. From the looks of it, you should be very clear about the strength of a God King. If I'm not wrong, you're only 1 step away from becoming a God King. Heavenly Father was just a term in the manga. In this world, only Rog knew of this term. You're not wrong. I'm indeed only 1 step away from becoming a God King. Rog wasn't surprised that Gulweg could see through his current level. If Gulweg didn't even have this bit of ability, then she would be too incompetent as a Heavenly Father tier. Since that's the case, then we have a basis for cooperation. You fought with Njord before, so you should have a rough idea of his strength. If you were to fight with him now, how confident are you in winning? Gulweg's tone became serious. Before answering this question, I also have a question for you. Are you planning to replace Njord as the God King of Warner Protoss? Gulweg, who never displayed her strength in front of outsiders, specially invited him over and even displayed her strength in front of him. If he still couldn't guess what Gulweg wanted to do, then he would be too slow. You're right. I'm planning to replace Njord as the God King. But because of some agreement, I can't directly attack him. So, if you don't mind, I hope you can challenge Njord. It's best if you can kill him. As long as you can do this, I can give you whatever you want. Even if you want Vigtigny and Weigelf to marry you at the same time, there won't be any problem. If you want, I can even bestow you a part of Warnerheim. After Gulweg finished speaking, Rog didn't answer immediately. Instead, he thought seriously. Killing Njord was also a good achievement. But the problem was that he didn't really want this achievement. The main reason was that the reward Gulweg offered wasn't too attractive to him. Vigtigny and Weigelf were indeed very beautiful, had good figures, and weren't weak. But how should he put it? He was a dedicated man. And his intuition told him that if he really married Vigtigny and Weigelf, then his future would definitely be miserable in all senses of the word. Let's not talk about the reward first. I want to know, if I really kill Njord, will the spoils he leaves behind belong to you or me? The spoils Rog was talking about were of course not Njord's weapons and equipment, but the origin power left behind after a Heavenly Father or an inferior Heavenly Father died in an abnormal state. This was similar to killing a god who absorbed the power of faith to obtain a godhood. It was just that Njord didn't rely on the power of faith to become a god, so what was obtained after killing him was his origin power. If you can kill Njord, the origin power he leaves behind will of course be yours. Gulweg was already a Heavenly Father. Although Njord's origin power was precious, it wasn't to the point where she had to have it. Okay, I can help you kill Njord, but I want detailed information about his weapons, moves, combat habits, and so on. The more detailed, the better. Also, I have a little obsessive-compulsive disorder. When I accept a commission, I'm used to signing a commission scroll with the client. With that, Rog summoned a commission scroll that he had never used before. The commission content is to write that I'll help you kill Njord. As for the reward, I want the highest browsing rights in your royal library for a month. Rog stated the reward he wanted and handed the commission scroll to Gulweg. Vigtigny and Weigelf were pretty good, but compared to precious knowledge, he wanted that knowledge more. That was because knowledge was power. Chapter 643. After hearing what Rog said about the reward, Gulweg's face changed slightly, and the way she looked at him changed. This was not because Rog wanted too much reward, but because it was too little. Not to mention the highest browsing authority of the Royal Library for a month, even if Rog wanted to make a copy of all the books in the Royal Library, it would not be difficult for her. Of course, to complete this, she needs to wait until she replaces Njord as the new God King of Warner Protoss. No problem, as long as you can kill Njord, all the books in the Royal Library will be open to you. After that, Gerwig took the commission scroll handed by Rog and wrote on it with her fingers. The text written with magic fell on the commission scroll and finally evolved into pale golden text. When Gerwig finished writing the commission scroll, Rog opened the commission page of the system and took a look. Sure enough, Gerwig's commission passed the judgment smoothly. Commission content: Kill Njord. Commission status: Incomplete. Commission reward: 500 ninja coins. Rog was not surprised that Gerwig's commission could pass the judgment of the system. But he did not expect that the system would give a commission reward of 500 ninja coins. If he remembered correctly, the highest reward given by the system before was only 350 ninja coins. And that time was because he stopped the goddess of death Hela from taking Asgard, so the system gave a reward of 350 ninja coins. But now, killing Njord made the system give a reward of 500 ninja coins. This also means that in the judgment of the system, killing Njord is more difficult than stopping the goddess of death Hela. But this is normal. After all, Njord is the God King of Warner Protoss. If he doesn't even have this card, then he is too cheap. Happy cooperation. After throwing the commission scroll that had completed the mission into the summon scroll, Rog said to Gerwig with satisfaction. Although he rarely exchanges anything now, but this kind of thing, no one would complain about having too much ninja coins. The information you want will be delivered to you today. When are you going to make your move? Was it an assassination or an open challenge? If it's a challenge, I can arrange a venue for you. Gerwig continued to ask. Let's challenge him directly. Let's set the time for 1 week from now. You can arrange the location. If you're not worried about the capital being destroyed, you can arrange for it to be in the capital. Since Gerwig already had plans to replace Njord, she must have a way to make Njord accept Rog's challenge. If she couldn't even do that, then there was no need for her to plan to replace Njord. Sure. When the time comes, I will definitely give you a fair duel. Right, from now on, you can change back to your real appearance. I'll help you deal with those little troubles of yours. Since they were all partners, Gerwig didn't mind helping Rog solve some small problems. In fact, she also wanted to see what the fourth Hokage, who left a great reputation in Asgard and Warnerheim, looked like. She didn't know why, but she always felt that Rog's white-haired appearance was a bit wretched, or rather, lecherous. Seeing Rog's white-haired appearance, she always associated him with some kind of greasy uncle. Thank you, Your Highness. After saying that, Rog lifted the effect of the transformation technique and returned to his original appearance. It's much better than the white-haired appearance just now. No wonder Vigtigny likes you. After confirming with Gerwig that Njord indeed had the power of the God King, Rog left Gerwig's palace and returned to the hotel. After seeing Rog return to the hotel with his real appearance, Hinata looked at him curiously. There's no need to maintain the effect of the transformation technique, the wanted order has been cancelled. Since Gerwig had spoken, Rog naturally didn't bother to continue to maintain the appearance of young Jiraiya. Although Jiraiya was quite good when he was young, compared with his real appearance, there was still a big gap. In the field of handsome, only Minato could barely be his opponent among the Hokage. What did Gerwig say to you? It's not something like a marriage or a political marriage, is it? How to say it, a woman's sixth sense is sometimes more accurate. No, she just entrusted me to challenge Njord and kill him by the way. Gerwig intends to replace Njord as the new God King of Warner Protoss. Rog sat on the sofa and briefly explained the matter of the commission. There was nothing to hide. If nothing unexpected happens, soon the whole Warnerheim will know that he wants to challenge Njord. Such a big commission, what reward did she give you? Hinata continued to ask. The highest browsing authority of the Royal Library is limited to 1 month. That's it, nothing else? That's it. Rog, you're not honest. You know, the Byakugan can actually see through people's hearts. After saying that, Hinata pointed to her unopened Byakugan. Are you kidding me? How can I not know the effect of the Byakugan? You just want to know if Gulweg used Vigtigni and Weigelf as conditions? Since you want to know so much, then I'll stop talking. After seeing that Rog didn't speak, Hinata came to the sofa and lay down like a kitten, and put her head on Rog's thigh. Are you sure? I heard that Njord has been the God King for a long time, even thousands of years. Touching Hinata's soft black hair, Roger replied with a relaxed expression, if you want to say that you're 100% sure, then I'm definitely not, about 50% sure. 50%? So low? After hearing Rog's answer, a look of worry appeared on Hinata's face. 50% sure, kill without injury. Rog explained that he had a 50% chance of winning. If it's just killing Njord, Rog has 80% certainty. But if it's just killing without injury, then he only has 50% certainty at most. Rog-san, you're a bit immodest. Njord is the God King, you can't underestimate your opponent like this. You have to be cautious, and cautious. Obviously, she only has 2 or 3 combat experience in total, but now she's reminding Rog not to underestimate his opponent. This is not immodest, this is called strategic contempt for the enemy. How can Rog underestimate Njord? The ninja coins reward given by the system is enough to prove something. Chapter 644. The news of the 4th Hokage Rog challenging the King of Gods Njord quickly spread throughout the capital with Gulwig's help. To be precise, it took less than an hour for the news to spread throughout the capital. Challenging the Warner Protoss's King of Gods in Warnerheim was something that had only happened a few times in the history of Warner Protoss. Not to mention, the person who challenged the King of Gods this time was an Earthling. If there was a ranking among Warner Protoss about who their most hated enemy was, Rog would definitely take the first place without any suspense. Even the goddess of death Hela, who was now leading the Frost Giants and Flame Giants to invade Warnerheim, was more popular than him. The reason for this was very simple. First of all, Rog helped Asgard's army defeat the Warner Protoss army twice. The first time was when Loki destroyed the Bifrost, and the second time was after Odin's death. These 2 opportunities were a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the Warner Divine clan. Unfortunately, these 2 opportunities were stopped by Rog. In addition to these 2 times, Warner Protoss also blamed Rog for the goddess of death Hela's invasion of Warnerheim. After knowing that Asgard had once fought with the goddess of death Hela in Jotunheim and defeated her, many Warner Protoss had an idea that didn't make sense but fit their mentality. They believed that it was Rog who helped Asgard defeat the goddess of death Hela, which led to Hela's invasion of Warnerheim. If Rog hadn't helped Asgard, Hela would have definitely defeated Asgard's army and become the monarch of Asgard. This way, Hela wouldn't have been able to rule Jotunheim and Muspelheim, let alone bring the Frost Giants and Flame Giants to invade Warnerheim. Therefore, everything that Warnerheim was suffering now was Rog's fault. What was even more difficult to understand was that there were only a few Warner Protoss who accepted this explanation. Therefore, Rog became the most hated person in the entire Warner Protoss. After knowing the thoughts of these Warner Protoss, Rog's only reaction was that no wonder Warnerheim had always been inferior to Asgard. When they encountered problems, they didn't look for the reason themselves, but blamed others instead. It was unreasonable for such a race to be better than Aseri. Although Logue did not take these thoughts of the Vannas to heart, he had to admit that this idea, which was shared by most of the Vannas, had caused him a lot of trouble. Although Gulwig stopped the Golden Thorn's arrest warrant, she couldn't stop people's thoughts. Therefore, Rog, who was living in the hotel, suffered a lot of unnecessary disturbances. This included, but was not limited to, people who always tried to break into his suite, or booked all the rooms around his suite, and then attacked him with noise from morning to night. Even his mount, Fenrir, suffered a lot of unnecessary harassment. In the beginning, Rog had planned to personally teach these arrogant fellows a lesson. But before he could do it, Hinata stopped him. Under Hinata's suggestion, Rog asked Gulwig for a manor in the suburbs of the capital, and then took Hinata and Fenrir to live there. After moving into this manor that belonged to Gulwig, the unspeakable harassment finally stopped. But this also brought a problem, and that was, Golwig's reputation among the people became a little bad. Golwig's move to let Rog live in the manor also caused a small problem. That is, the cooperation between them became known to everyone. Although people didn't know the specific content of the cooperation between them, everyone now knew that the reason why Rog challenged Njord was Golwig's arrangement. This also caused Golwig to suffer the most serious reputation crisis in history. Just when Rog was curious about how Golwig was going to restore her reputation, Golwig made a move that made him look sideways. Golwig, who rarely made a move in the Warner Protoss, showed her overbearingness without hiding it. She didn't do anything about those ordinary discussions. However, as long as anyone dared to mention that she had deliberately colluded with Log, betrayed the Vannas, or even talked about some disgusting cooperation that could not be brought up in public, she would use her actions to prove what it meant to kill anyone who criticized her. For a time, the entire capital was slaughtered, and a large number of people were beheaded by Golwig's army every day. Under this thunderous suppression, all the criticism in the royal city instantly disappeared. Of course, this was only the disappearance on the surface. Of course, Golwig knew that these discontented people were just hiding in the dark. But she didn't care too much about this. All she wanted was peace and quiet on the surface. After Golwig arranged for her army to capture and kill those who criticized her, the people of Warner Protoss realized Golwig's overbearingness and strength for the first time. The current divine king of Warner Protoss was Njord, but when capturing and killing those people, Golwig didn't greet Njord at all. Even a few blood relatives of Njord were captured by Golwig's people and beheaded in public. In addition to showing her overbearingness and strength, Golwig's actions also revealed a very important piece of information. That was, nearly half of the entire army of Warner Protoss was actually in her hands. No one knew when exactly she pulled these troops under her command, but what people could see was that half of the army hung Golwig's flag in the position of the commander's flag. This woman is not simple. After seeing Golwig's actions over the past few days, Rog had to admit that he had underestimated Golwig. He thought that Golwig, as a goddess, would be more tactful. But he didn't expect that in this aspect, Golwig's overbearingness and strength were no less than his. When arresting those people who were criticizing her, her army really broke down their doors and arrested them without caring about the so-called evidence. According to incomplete statistics, more than 3,000 people were beheaded in public in the past few days alone. When Golwig went to the manor to ask how her preparations were going, Rog asked Golwig what she was thinking. Then Golwig gave him a very simple answer. What Warner Protoss needs now is a powerful monarch who means what she says.